Chapter 2551. 2551 Three Great Sword Immortals. 2551 Three Great Sword Immortals. The Divine Firmament Hall was extremely vast and could accommodate more than 10 million people. By the time Heaven and Earth Academy arrived with their group of more than 100,000 disciples, there were already many people gathered in the Divine Firmament Hall. They were dense and could not be seen with a single glance. The cultivators of Divine Firmament Palace were at the highest point of the hall. On both sides, the regions of the 7 heaven-grade factions were lined up. Right now, the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom, Mountain Sea Immortal Sect and Imperial Wind Temple had already arrived. A few familiar faces could vaguely be seen in the crowd. When everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy arrived, the leaders of the 3 major factions stood up one after another and cupped their fists towards them. Yuhua, it's been many years since we last met. A white-robed man from Imperial Wind Temple stood up and greeted Sword Immortal Yuhua with a handsome expression. He had sharp brows and bright eyes and a long sword hung on his waist. Brother Chunfeng, you're still as elegant as ever. Sword Immortal Yuhua chuckled and nodded in acknowledgement. Yang Ruoxu sent a voice transmission secretly. This is Chunfeng Jian of Imperial Wind Temple, one of the 3 great Sword Immortal. This person has a good relationship with senior brother Yu Hua. Now that you crippled Heaven Immortal Luo Yang on the Azura battlefield, you have to be wary of him. Su Zimo looked at Sword Immortal Chunfeng. At the same time, Sword Immortal Chunfeng shifted his gaze and looked at Su Zimo. It was a strange look. There was a hint of hostility and yet, pity as well. Apart from Sword Immortal Chunfeng, there was another person in Imperial Wind Temple whom Su Zimo had seen before. Back on the Dragon Abyss Star, there were 3 perfected immortals. Apart from Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Zither Immortal Meng Yao, the other one was this person who seemed to be called Perfected Immortal Wu Feng. The leader of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom's expedition this time round could be considered as someone he was familiar with. It was Xie Ling who hosted the 10,000-year meet and the battle for the seal. The Perfected Immortal leading Mountain Sea Immortal Sect this time round was Mu Feng. He was tall and burly and glared at Su Zimo for a long time with an unfriendly expression. In the Azura battlefield, Yu Hai was killed by Su Zimo. It was not hard to understand why this person was hostile towards him. Su Zimo ignored Mu Feng. This was Divine Firmament Palace. Even if Mu Feng was hostile towards him, he would not have the chance to attack. What truly caught Su Zimo's attention was the black-robed man beside Mu Feng. The black-robed man was only a grade 9 Heaven Immortal. However, he assumed a lotus position and could sit side by side with Mu Feng. The person's eyes were closed and his back was straight. He placed his hands casually on his knees with his palms facing the skies and had a cold expression. Sensing Su Zimo's gaze, the black-robed man suddenly opened his eyes and looked towards Su Zimo. Sharp senses. Su Zimo nodded to himself. If he was not wrong, this should be rank 2 on the Heaven ranking prediction, the reincarnated perfected immortal of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect, Qin Gu. Everyone from Heaven and Earth Academy sat down one after another. Right then, the faction of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom arrived in the hall. Their leader was the shadowless sword, Zhu Wuying, who had a conflict with Su Zimo and the others in the past. Wow, the Divine Firmament Immortal meet is way too lively this time round. All 3 great sword immortals are here. I wonder how many of the 4 great fairies will come. Oh. I heard that the Zither and Book Immortals are here, but I don't see any signs of the Chess Immortal. The Chess Immortal was from Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Given the Chess Immortal status, even Mu Feng would have to obey her if she came to the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. Right now, Mu Feng was leading the group from Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Everyone guessed that they might not get the chance to see the Chess Immortal this time round. Sword Immortal Yu Hua stood up and cupped his fists in the direction of Zhu Wuying. Zhu Wuying met Sword Immortal Yu Hua's gaze in midair and nodded in acknowledgement. Suddenly, Yang Ruoxu frowned. He felt that something was amiss. There were more than 10 perfected immortals from the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom who were taking part in the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. That was a little too many. Under normal circumstances, the main focus of the Divine Firmament Immortal meet were the Heaven Immortals. Typically, perfected immortal experts of the major sects and factions would not partake in the occasion save for the few perfected immortals who were in charge of leading the groups. Not long after the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet was the 9 Firmament Meet. That was an Immortal Dao event with perfected immortals as the focus, and countless perfected immortal experts would gather then. This time round, Ling was the only one leading the group from the Yan-Yang Immortal Kingdom. Mountain Sea Immortal Sect only sent a single perfected immortal, Mu Feng. 2 people from Imperial Wind Temple, Sword Immortal Chun Feng and perfected immortal Wu Feng, arrived. The fact that Heaven and Earth Academy had 4 was already considered many. But now, more than 10 perfected immortals from the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom were present. Why are there so many perfected immortals from the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom? Don't you know? The number 1 Heaven Execution Guard, Song Su, who was initially rank 5 on the Heaven ranking prediction, was killed by Su Zimo in a single move. The Great Gene Immortal Kingdom only has 3 people remaining on the Heaven ranking prediction. Furthermore, their ranks are beneath 50. Yes, I know that. And so? I reckon they brought a few more perfected immortals here so that they won't look bad. In the crowd, some cultivators noticed the commotion and discussed in secret as well. Before long, everyone from the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom arrived and instantly attracted the attention of countless cultivators. The entire Divine Firmament Hall was in an uproar. It was truly because there were 2 people from the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom who were way too famous in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain. Look, the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom is led by Book Immortal Yun Zhu. That plain-robed woman is Fairy Yun Zhu. As expected of the Book Immortal. Even with light makeup, she has such a bearing. The painting and Book Immortals are already here. They're truly beautiful and each has their own merits. If I can win the heart of either of them, I'm willing to give up 100,000 years of my lifespan. Dream on. Behind Book Immortal Yun Zhu was a young man with a long sword on his back. He surveyed his surroundings with a swift gaze and was like an unsheathed sword with a sharp edge. It was rank 1 on the Heaven ranking prediction, Yun Ting. Yun Ting seemed to be searching for something in the crowd. When he saw Qin Gu, his gaze did not pause at all. It swept past and landed in the direction of Heaven and Earth Academy, locking onto Su Zimo. The moment the 2 of them exchanged glances, their eyes lit up. Neither of them retreated or dodged with a torrential battle intent. Su Zimo wanted the human-slaying sword art. As for Yun Ting, not only did he want to obtain the Heaven and Earth-slaying sword arts, he wanted to defeat Su Zimo and regain the dignity he lost in the Emperor's tomb. When Book Immortal Yun Zhu arrived, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others stood up and greeted. Yun Zhu smiled and returned the greetings one after another. Yun Zhu and Mo Qing exchanged glances and smiled. The smiles of the Book Immortal and Painting Immortal caused another commotion in the crowd. Thereafter, Yun Zhu looked at Su Zimo who was behind Mo Qing. Zimo, be careful. For some unknown reason, Flying Immortal Sect and the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom sent many perfected immortals this time round. They seem to be up to something big. Yun Zhu's pleasant voice sounded in Su Zimo's consciousness. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. From the looks of it, the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect might really make a move. However, right now, he could not figure out what Zither Immortal Meng Yao and the others could do at the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet. After all, he was a disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy. Even if the 2 of them were like fire and water, Zither Immortal Meng Yao would not attack him openly and Divine Firmament Palace would not let this happen. Unless Meng Yao and the others had sufficient reason. Just as Su Zimo was deep in thought, Flying Immortal Sect arrived. Chapter 2552. 2552 Change of Rules. 2552 Change of Rules. The sound of a zither sounded endlessly and spread to every corner of the Divine Firmament Hall. Before Zither Immortal Meng Yao arrived, she attracted the attention of countless cultivators. Immediately after, Meng Yao arrived at the Divine Firmament Hall with a group of cultivators from Flying Immortal Sect. As Yun Zhu had said, Flying Immortal Sect had 18 perfected immortals. It was clear that they were hostile with such a grand lineup. Zhong Feiyu was a reincarnated perfected immortal after all, and was also in the group of perfected immortals. He looked at Su Zimo's side and smiled provocatively, making a throat-slicing gesture. Su Zimo's expression was calm and unmoved. To him, Zhong Feiyu was like a clown that posed no threat at all. The only ones he felt threatened were Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Zither Immortal Meng Yao and the others. The gathering of 3 great sword immortals and 3 great fairies is truly unprecedented. Unfortunately, the chess immortal is missing. The chess immortal is probably preparing for the 9 firmament meet. I heard that she has a chance of entering the top 3 of the perfected immortal ranking, and even has a chance of fighting for the position of the supreme perfected immortal. Before the divine firmament immortal meet officially began, many cultivators were already invigorated and felt that their trip was not wasted. From then on, the 3 immortal kingdoms and 4 immortal sects were all present. They were now only waiting for someone from Divine Firmament Palace to come and host the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet. Before long, a group of cultivators walked over slowly from the depths of the Divine Firmament Hall. Their leader was a middle-aged man in green robes with a calm expression and a powerful aura. The middle-aged man seemed to have fused with the surrounding void as one. The Grotto Heaven realm, an immortal king had descended. Behind the middle-aged man were 6 perfected immortals. They were the 6 people who had watched the battle in the Azura battlefield back then, and Fairy Divine Crane was among them. There were also many young and beautiful maidservants of Divine Firmament Palace accompanying him. Although the maidservants looked young, all of them were heaven immortals. From that, one could sense the terrifying foundation of Divine Firmament Palace. Here, even heaven immortals were only maidservants. The middle-aged man descended. Against the immortal king, everyone present did not dare to be rude and stood up one after another. The middle-aged man nodded slightly and declared, "I'm Qing Yang, the eldest disciple of Immortal Emperor Divine Firmament and the host for the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet this time round." Immortal King Qing Yang was at the perfected Grotto Heaven realm and was a peak immortal king. "Greetings, Immortal King Qing Yang." Everyone cupped their fists. "Everyone, have a seat." Immortal King Qing Yang had an indifferent expression as he waved his hand casually and sat on a high chair. I'm sure everyone has already understood the rules of the Heaven ranking competition. The rules of the Heaven ranking were the same as the Earth ranking. It was a one-on-one fight based on the ranking, and the loser would be eliminated. For example, Yun Ting, who was rank 1 on the Heaven ranking prediction, would be up against the rank 100 cultivator. As for Su Zimo, he was rank 3 on the Heaven ranking prediction and would be matched against the rank 98 cultivator. Everyone, I'm sure you know that the higher your ranking is after the battle for the Heaven ranking concludes, the more benefits you will obtain. Immortal King Qing Yang said, "Of course, Divine Firmament Palace will give every cultivator on the Heaven ranking an opportunity." Many cultivators on the Heaven ranking prediction were delighted. Suddenly, Yun Ting stood up and said with cupped fists, "Immortal King Qing Yang, pardon me for being blunt. The rules for the Heaven ranking battle are way too troublesome and illogical." Many cultivators were secretly speechless. Yun Ting was probably the only one who had the guts to speak to Immortal King Qing Yang in such a manner. Immortal King Qing Yang was not annoyed and smiled indifferently, asking instead, "The rules of the ranking battle have been passed down for many years. How are they illogical?" Yun Ting said, "That's because most people on the Heaven ranking prediction won't even stand a chance to fight for rank 1 on the Heaven ranking." "Oh, you have a better idea." Immortal King Qing Yang raised his brow slightly. Yun Ting chuckled and raised his head slightly, saying proudly, "In my opinion, it will either be me or Su Zimo who will be rank 1 on the Heaven ranking. No one else is worthy." That statement was extremely arrogant and was equivalent to disregarding everyone else on the Heaven ranking prediction. Even for rank 2, Qin Gu, rank 4, Zhong Feiyu and rank 5, Lai Xian, none of them were mentioned by Yun Ting. Zhong Feiyu snorted coldly. Although Qin Gu was indignant, he was expressionless and had a calm personality, not expressing anything. "So, how do you want to arrange it?" Immortal King Qing Yang smiled and asked again. "It's simple." Yun Ting pointed at Su Zimo of Heaven and Earth Academy. "The 2 of us will fight the first round directly. Whoever wins shall be rank 1 on the Heaven ranking. The others are not qualified to challenge us and they can just go and fight for ranks 3, 4 or whatever." Su Zimo smiled gently. That was indeed Yun Ting's style. Simple, direct, arrogant and merciless. Immortal King Qing Yang shook his head. "This is unfair to the others. Even if I agree, there will be people who disagree. Who cares about them?" Yun Ting waved it off and turned to glare at Su Zimo with a raring battle intent. Su Zimo, it's enough as long as you agree to it. The reason why Yun Ting made this suggestion was because of the pride in the depths of his heart. Even after the fights of the ranking battle, there was a high chance that the two of them would be the only ones left. However, neither of them would be in their peak conditions at that moment, and this fight that was long meant to be theirs would not be completely fair either. Since they wanted to compete, Yun Ting wanted to defeat Su Zimo openly. Also, in Yun Ting's heart, fighting for rank 1 on the heaven ranking was not the most important thing. What he valued the most was to defeat Su Zimo and obtain the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. Su Zimo quickly understood Yun Ting's intentions and did not reject him. He stood up and said in a deep voice, "All right, as you wish." Although this was against the rules, none of the cultivators below stood out to object. That was because most of the cultivators on the heaven ranking prediction knew that Yun Ting was right. They truly would not have the chance to fight for rank 1 the heaven ranking. As for Qin Gu and Zhong Feiyu, who both had a shot at rank 1, they exchanged glances and tacitly did not say anything. For the two of them, there were only benefits and no disadvantages. In a fight between two tigers, one would definitely be injured. First, they would let Yun Ting and Su Zimo fight till an internecine outcome. At that time, no matter who won or lost, they could stand out and defeat Yun Ting or Su Zimo with ease, reaping the rewards. Yun Zhu looked at Yun Ting and Su Zimo with a conflicted expression, wanting to speak but stopped. Even she did not know who would win this battle. She wanted to persuade Su Zimo or Yun Ting not to fight to the death. However, once both parties fought to their limits, it would be difficult for them to stop. She was unwilling to see either party in trouble. However, she knew that this battle between the two of them was absolutely inevitable. It was as though this battle was predestined and there must be a victor between the two of them so that the 3 sword arts could be fused into one. Hold on. Right then, Zither Immortal Meng Yao suddenly spoke and stood up slowly. Yun Zhu frowned slightly. Here it comes. Su Zimo lamented internally. Chapter 2553. 2553 Troubles. 2553 Trouble. Meng Yao came to the middle of the hall and cupped her fists towards Immortal King Qin Yang. Thereafter, she surveyed her surroundings and declared, "The heaven ranking is for the human race. Nobody from another race is allowed to fight for the heaven ranking." Of course. Sword Immortal Yu Hua nodded. Even cultivators from other immortal domains are not qualified to fight for the heaven ranking of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, let alone those of other races. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely guessed something. Suddenly, he felt a strong sense of hostility from the crowd of Imperial Wind Temple. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and met with a pair of hateful eyes. That person had white hair and looked withered. It was Heaven Immortal Luo Yang who was crippled by him in the Azura battlefield. When he saw that person, Su Zimo was even more certain of his guess. As the eldest disciple of Immortal Emperor Divine Firmament, Immortal King Qin Yang presided over Divine Firmament Palace. Naturally, he knew everything in the world and had also heard about the feud between Zither Immortal Meng Yao, the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, and Su Zimo. With his experience, he could easily tell that Zither Immortal Meng Yao was clearly targeting Su Zimo when she suddenly stood out. However, he was also curious and wanted to see how Meng Yao would deal with a disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy in Divine Firmament Palace in front of everyone. After all, Heaven and Earth Academy was not to be trifled with either. Immortal King Qin Yang had no intention of interfering and was prepared to watch the show. What do you mean by that, Fairy Meng Yao? Zhu Wuying pretended not to know and asked, could it be that cultivators of other immortal domains have infiltrated the heaven ranking prediction? Fufu, it's a cultivator from another immortal domain, we can just chase him away. Imperial Wind Temple's perfected Immortal Wu Feng chuckled. What scary would be if someone from another race infiltrated the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain for nefarious reasons. There was someone from another race on the heaven ranking prediction. Most of the cultivators did not know what was going on, nor did they know who the outsider Meng Yao and the others were referring to was. Even Yun Ting frowned in confusion. Yun Zhu observed the situation with a grim expression. Up till now, Flying Immortal Sect, the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom and Imperial Wind Temple had already stood out. From the looks of it, Meng Yao and the others should have discussed a plan long ago and were prepared to attack at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. Furthermore, the reason given by Meng Yao and the others was extremely difficult to refute. There's someone from another race on the heaven ranking prediction? Who is it? Capture him. Those that are not of our race will definitely harbor evil intentions. The discussions in the Divine Firmament Hall intensified. Meng Yao flicked her finger gently in the void and the sound of a zither sounded. Everyone's voices gradually faded. Meng Yao said indifferently, "Everyone has heard of this person. In recent years, he's rather famous in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, and is even backed by a heaven-grade sect." The direction of that statement was extremely obvious. This outsider was among the 7 heaven-grade factions. Sword Immortal Yu Hua smiled gently. "Fairy Meng Yao, feel free to speak. I believe that no matter which heaven-grade sect it is, they won't protect him if they know that he's from another race." "I'm relieved to hear that, fellow Taoist Yu Hua's." Meng Yao nodded slightly. "Su Zimo of Heaven and Earth Academy is not from our race." Su Zimo had already guessed it earlier on and was not surprised by Meng Yao's words. However, an uproar broke out in the Divine Firmament Hall. Everyone was shocked. That statement was extremely powerful. Once verified, it was enough to destroy Su Zimo or even kill him. Yang Ruoxu frowned and realized that the grim situation was extremely disadvantageous for Su Zimoch. For Meng Yao to say something like that, she must be definitely confident. Although Mo Qing did not say anything, there was still a hint of worry in the depths of her eyes. How is that possible? Junior brother Su is someone from another race? Sword Immortal Yu Hua looked surprised and in disbelief, as though he was still defending Su Zimo. He frowned. "Fairy Meng Yao, you can't spout nonsense like that. It will also affect the reputation of our academy." "Since I dare to say it, I'm naturally backed by sufficient evidence." Meng Yao looked in the direction of Imperial Wind Temple and said, "Heaven Immortal Luo Yang, tell me everything you know." Heaven Immortal Luo Yang was long prepared and recounted everything that happened on the Dragon Abyss Star in a half-truth manner. "I do have some impression of what you're talking about." Sword Immortal Yu Hua's words further confirmed Heaven Immortal Luo Yang's words. "That's right. I can testify to this as well. I was on the Dragon Abyss Star at that time." Perfected Immortal Wu Feng said in a deep voice. Heaven Immortal Luo Yang's description was illusory and gave off the feeling that Su Zimo had a close connection with the dragon race. He was just short of pointing out that Su Zimo was from the dragon race. The soul of the Azure Dragon and the Divine Dragon that appeared later on were rather strange. In reality, this might not prove that there was a connection with Su Zimo. However, once something like this was said, it would lead to speculation, doubt and even suspicion. Furthermore, there was Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Perfected Immortal Wu Feng and Sword Immortal Yu Hua as witnesses. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was even a legacy disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy. What does that prove? Yang Ruoxu stood up and shook his head. Let's not talk about whether the soul of the Azure Dragon is related to Junior Brother Su or not. Even if it is, how can it prove that Junior Brother Su is from another race? Isn't your judgment way too arbitrary? Initially, Yun Ting thought that Meng Yao and the others would pull out some irrefutable evidence. To think that it was merely Heaven Immortal Luo Yang's one-sided explanation. Tisk. Yun Ting sneered and looked at Perfected Immortal Wu Feng, pouting his lips. Your mount is a golden ant. According to your claims, I can say that you're from the golden ant race as well. There were not many people present who dared to speak to a perfected immortal like that or even mock a perfected immortal expert. Yun Ting happened to be one of them. Although perfected immortal Wu Feng was secretly frustrated, he was wary and could not attack Yun Ting. I'm afraid it's not arbitrary. Perfected immortal Mu Feng of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect said in a deep voice. I heard that Su Zimo specializes in an extremely powerful sound domain secret skill of the dragon race. How does he know the Dermic Tao of the dragon race? That's not all. Zhu Wuying said, this person also knows the secret skill of the dragon race, the true Dragon 9 Flashes. Zhong Feiyu stood out as well. Seniors, back in the Azura battlefield, Su Zimo even released the Essence Spirit secret skill of the dragon race, the Reverse Scale. At that time, I did not continue fighting him and left the Azura battlefield. It was not because I was afraid of him, but because I sensed something strange about his identity, I wanted to leave as soon as possible so that I could report this matter to the sect. In reality, Zhong Feiyu did not recognize the origin of the reverse scale secret skill at all. Indeed, he was forced back by the reverse scale. He only truly knew the reverse scale secret skill after returning to the sect and searching through many ancient books and information as well as asking the immortal kings of the sect. Reverse scale. The expression of Immortal King Qingyang changed. Naturally, most cultivators did not know about that essence spirit secret skill. However, as an immortal king, he had long heard of this essence spirit secret skill of the dragon race. Even if other races obtained the cultivation technique of that secret skill, they would not be able to release it without the essence spirit of the dragon race. In that case, there might indeed be something wrong with Su Zimo's identity. Chapter 2554. 2554 Soul Searching. 2554 Soul Searching. Yun Zhu smiled gently. Everyone, wouldn't it be ridiculous if you're certain that Su Zimo is a dragon just because of a few secret skills of the dragon race? I believe that many of the cultivators present possess divine powers and secret skills of other races. In fact, some of us from the immortal domain have even cultivated cultivation techniques of the fiend Dao. Could they all be from other races or are all fiends? That logic was extremely simple. However, when it came from the book Immortal, there was a convincing power. The initially noisy crowd gradually calmed down. In fact, many cultivators began to reflect if they would be considered as other races according to those standards. The perfected immortals of Flying Immortal Sect, the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and Imperial Wind Temple frowned slightly in confusion. Their target this time round was Su Zimo and he was the opponent of Yun Ting as well. Logically speaking, Yun Ting should be on their side. To think that Yun Ting would speak up for Su Zimo. That alone was fine. After all, Prince Yun Ting had always been fearless and would always do shocking things. However, why would Book Immortal Yun Zhu stand out and express that stance as well? Second brother, can you help to say something? On the side of the Yenyang Immortal Kingdom, Xie Qingqing could not help but feel worried when he saw Su Zimo surrounded by a few major factions and sent a voice transmission to Xie Ling. Xie Ling shook his head gently without saying anything. The current situation was gradually becoming clearer. Immortal King Qingyang of Divine Firmament Palace clearly wanted to stay out of things and watch by the sidelines. Among the 7 heaven-grade factions, only Book Immortal Yun Zhu of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom stood on Su Zimo's side for the time being. On the side of Zither Immortal Meng Yao, there were 3 great factions: Flying Immortal Sect, the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and Imperial Wind Temple. Furthermore, perfected Immortal Mu Feng of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect seemed like he wanted to hit Su Zimo while he was down as well. This meant that among the 7 heaven-grade factions, Flying Immortal Sect, the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom, Imperial Wind Temple and Mountain Sea Immortal Sect had already formed an alliance. Even if he stood on the side of Heaven and Earth Academy, it was useless. That was because Zither Immortal Meng Yao had clearly come prepared for this attack. There were more than 30 perfected immortals from the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and Flying Immortal Sect alone. If the situation was out of control and both parties fought, Heaven and Earth Academy would not be able to gain any advantage. Furthermore, although Book Immortal Yun Zhu spoke up for him, there was no way she would fight against the 4 heaven-grade factions for the sake of an inner sect disciple of the Academy. In other words, the 4 perfected immortals of Heaven and Earth Academy would have to face dozens of perfected immortals from Flying Immortal Sect, the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom, Imperial Wind Temple and Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Among them were top-tier perfected immortal experts such as the Shadowless Sword, Chun Feng Jian, Zither Immortal Meng Yao and perfected Immortal Wu Feng. More importantly, Xie Ling heard that Sword Immortal Yu Hua did not seem to have a harmonious relationship with Su Zimo. If that was true, there would be no one who could protect Su Zimo and it would be difficult for him to escape this calamity. This is no small matter. Perfected Immortal Wu Feng said in a deep voice, if an outsider has infiltrated the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain and we even let him take part in the fight for the Heaven ranking, this will be an insult for Divine Firmament Palace. Perfected Immortal Wu Feng's words were even more vicious and dragged Divine Firmament Palace into it. The expression of Immortal King Qingyang was unchanged and he remained silent. Yang Ruoxu said, "You guys have said so much but there's no definite evidence at all. It's just your own guess." Meng Yao chuckled and glared at Su Zimo, saying slowly, "It's simple if you want evidence. As long as we search his soul, the truth will be revealed."
No!
Mo Qing stood up and hollered. She was not good with words and did not like to argue with others. Therefore, she did not say anything earlier on. But now that Meng Yao and the others were pushing their luck and even wanted to search Su Zimo's soul, that was too much. Before the Divine Firmament Immortal meet began, the three fairies were in a standoff. Yun Zhu sneered. "Meng Yao, you want to search the soul of others just because of a groundless guess? You're quite the character, huh? Actually, this is also good for Heaven and Earth Academy." Zhu Wuying said, "If that lad is truly from another race, it'll be good for Heaven and Earth Academy as well to kick him out earlier." Sword Immortal Yu Hua frowned. "The soul-searching art is way too dangerous. If anything happens..." "Don't worry, fellow Taoist Yu Hua." Meng Yao said, "I invited a senior of the sect this time round, Old Man Soul Collector. He has a deep understanding of the essence spirit and soul. Even if he searches someone's soul, the person's essence spirit won't be damaged." Su Zimo sneered. Notwithstanding the fact that he might be injured if he landed in the hands of Old Man Soul Collector, even if the soul-searching art would not cause him any harm, he would not let anyone search his soul. That was his dignity and bottom line. It was not that Su Zimo had not thought of summoning the Martial Dao Prime Body. However, the Martial Dao Prime Body was in seclusion to deduce and perfect the Martial Dao. He did not want to disturb him. Furthermore, this was Divine Firmament Palace and there was a high chance that Immortal Emperor Divine Firmament was holding down the fort here. Once an Immortal Emperor was alarmed, even with the Hell Suppression Tripod, it would be difficult for the Martial Dao Prime Body to escape. More importantly, if the Martial Dao Prime Body were to rush over right as he was in danger, it would be difficult to explain the relationship between the two of them. Meng Yao and the others were confident. No matter what choice Su Zimo made, he would definitely die. If he dared to let Old Man Soul Collector search his soul, as long as Old Man Soul Collector played dirty, his essence spirit would be crippled. At that time, Old Man Soul Collector could simply say that he made a mistake and no one could refute anything. Given Meng Yao's understanding of Su Zimo, he would definitely not let anyone search his soul. Once Su Zimo rejected, they could claim that it was because he felt guilty and it would give them even more reason to attack. Sword Immortal Yu Hua had a gratified expression. "That's good. A soul search will also prove Junior Brother Su's innocence and reassure everyone." "Junior Brother Su, what do you think?" The two of them exchanged glances. Su Zimo caught a hint of smugness from the depths of Sword Immortal Yu Hua's eyes. "This is inappropriate." Mo Qing frowned and rejected once more. However, any normal cultivator would agree to such a request. Sword Immortal Yu Hua smiled gently and continued asking, "Junior Brother Su, if you have a clear conscience, there's no need to be fearful of a soul search, right?" Su Zimo raised his brows slightly. "Yu Hua, I suspect that you're a spy from the Fiend domain. Let that old man search your soul first to prove your innocence and reassure everyone." "Bullshit!" Sword Immortal Yu Hua hollered. "Don't get worked up. If you have a clear conscience, there's no need to be fearful of a soul search, right?" Su Zimo asked with a calm expression. He returned the same words to Sword Immortal Yu Hua. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was speechless for a moment. His eyes were sharp and his expression was terrible. Zhu Wuying said coldly, "He has a sharp tongue. I think he's just feeling guilty." "That's right." Perfected Immortal Wu Feng narrowed his eyes slightly. "In my opinion, the big picture is more important. We should capture him first and search his soul." "How dare you!" Mo Qing took out her destiny painting book and flipped it open, prepared to tear it off at any moment. "You guys have slandered us so unreasonably. Do you really think that Heaven and Earth Academy is weak?" Yang Ruoxu had a guarded expression as well. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Mo Qing and protected Su Zimo behind him. Suddenly, Sword Immortal Yu Hua attacked Mo Qing from behind and a few wisps of sword chi surged into her body, sealing her Dao fruit. She was trapped on the spot and could not move at all. Mo Qing had not expected that someone from the academy would attack her from behind. She was caught off guard and was restrained instantly. At the same time, another perfected immortal of the academy, Chen Xian, ambushed Yang Ruoxu as well. He summoned a rope and trapped the latter's body, sealing his true essence. In the blink of an eye, painting Immortal Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu were restrained by Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Chen Xian, and the situation changed. Chapter 2555. 2555 Promise. 2555 Promise. This change caused an uproar at the scene. The situation had far exceeded everyone's expectations. To think that before Meng Yao and the others could attack, internal strife broke out in Heaven and Earth Academy, and Sword Immortal Yu Hua attacked to restrain painting Immortal Mo Qing. Immortal King Qing Yang looked at everything with interest and a smile. It seemed like Zither Immortal Meng Yao and the others had indeed planned for a long time and came prepared. This time round, they wanted to kill Su Zimo completely. It was truly interesting to cause such a huge commotion for the sake of a Heaven Immortal. Still, Immortal King Qing Yang had no intention of stepping in. The current situation was completely one-sided. On Su Zimo's side, even the only two perfected immortals in Heaven and Earth Academy who supported him were restrained by Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Sword Immortal Yu Hua. As for the Book Immortal of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom, Yun Zhu. Under normal circumstances, when she saw this situation, Book Immortal Yun Zhu should retreat in the face of difficulties. Yu Hua, what are you doing? Mo Qing questioned loudly in shock and anger. The fact that she even skipped the formalities of addressing him as senior brother was proof of how furious she was. Sword Immortal Yu Hua had a calm expression as he said gently, "Junior sister, don't be angry. I'm doing this for the safety of the academy. If Su Zimo isn't from another race, he will still remain as a disciple of our academy and our junior brother. However, if he's from another race or has any connection to one, as the #1 legacy disciple of the academy, I can only clean up the academy's mess. Yu Hua, do you know what you're doing?" Although Yang Ruoxu could not move at all, his expression was sharp as he hollered, "You're joining forces with outsiders to harm your fellow sect mate of the academy. You're making things sound too serious, junior brother Yang." Sword Immortal Yu Hua's expression was indifferent and his tone gradually turned cold. "If Su Zimo's innocence can be proven after the soul-searching art, I'll naturally seek justice for him." In reality, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Zither Immortal Meng Yao and the others were long prepared for the many possibilities that might happen later on. If Su Zimo were to undergo the soul-searching art, Old Man Soul Collector would definitely play dirty to cripple Su Zimo. At that time, Sword Immortal Yu Hua would stand out and kill Old Man Soul Collector without giving the other party any chance to explain. With that, it would be difficult for others to blame him since he was taking revenge for Su Zimo, and had even killed a perfected immortal of the other party. "Second brother, what should we do now?" Xie Qingqing was anxious and asked with a voice transmission. Xie Ling sighed gently. Su Zimo no longer has a chance. The person he offended is Zither Immortal Meng Yao after all. Even in the academy, Sword Immortal Yu Hua wants to get rid of him. There's no one who can protect him. Actually, many of those things can't be blamed on him. It's just because he carries too much karma because he came from the lower worlds. Xie Qingqing was puzzled by Xie Ling's final sentence. Xie Ling continued, "Haven't you noticed that Su Zimo is similar to someone from hundreds of thousands of years ago? Feng Cantion." Xie Qingqing immediately thought of the Thunder Monarch and blurted. Xie Ling nodded. To be precise, his potential is even greater than Feng Cantion. Even Divine Firmament Palace is unwilling to have a repeat of Feng Cantion's episode. He has only ascended for a few thousand years and his foundation is too shallow. Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Zhu Wuying are all renowned perfected immortal experts. It can be said that these people can do whatever they want in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain. With so many people joining forces to deal with a Heaven Immortal like him, how can he survive? On the side of Heaven and Earth Academy, Sword Immortal Yu Hua said indifferently, "Junior brother Su, the truth of whether you are innocent will be revealed through a soul search. Please. Fuck you perfected immortals. You're even more vicious and hypocritical than the perfected fiends of the fiend domain." When Yun Ting saw that, he cursed fiercely. Even though he was not directly involved, he felt suffocated. Another race? Soul search? Meng Yao, Yu Hua and the other perfected immortals were clearly trying to force Su Zimo to his death in front of everyone. Yun Ting knew that be it him or Su Zimo, neither of them would bow down, compromise or back down against such a request. However, once Su Zimo resisted, the group of perfected immortals would have a reason to attack. Yun Ting was enraged. However, he knew that there was nothing he could do. He was a rare paragon and monster incarnate of the divine firmament immortal domain. However, he was only a grade 9 heaven immortal right now and could not help much. At that moment, Yun Ting actually felt a sense of sadness in his heart and felt extremely indignant for Su Zimo. Neither Heaven and Earth Academy nor the divine firmament immortal domain were worthy of someone like him. Yun Ting took out a jar of strong wine from his storage bag and came before Su Zimo. He handed it over and shouted, "Su Zimo, I can't help you today, but don't worry, you won't die in vain. Once I advance to the perfected immortal realm, I'll target all these dogs-hit perfected immortals who targeted you today. I'll go knocking on their doors to slaughter them one after another as payback for you." Many cultivators were shocked when they heard that. The divine firmament hall became much quieter. Nobody expected Yun Ting to say something like that in public. Yun Ting was threatening Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Ju Wuying and the other top perfected immortals with the cultivation realm of a grade 9 heaven immortal. Not only could everyone sense Yun Ting's anger, indignance and killing intent, they even felt a sense of tragedy. Many people looked at the two young men in the middle of the hall with puzzled expressions. Weren't the two of them enemies and at odds? Why would Yun Ting help Su Zimo? Why would Yun Ting say such harsh words for Su Zimo? Furthermore, he was willing to offend so many sects, factions and perfected immortal experts. None of them understood. This was a mutual appreciation of one another between two top geniuses. Yun Ting wanted to defeat Su Zimo. However, more than that, he respected Su Zimo, this opponent who could fight him. To others, Yun Ting's words sounded like a threat. However, Su Zimo understood that this was a promise from Yun Ting. Since you guys forced Su Zimo to his death today, I, Yun Ting, will come knocking on your doors one after another and slaughter all of you in the future. Su Zimo received the jar of strong wine from Yun Ting and smiled at him. Cheers! The two of them slapped away the mud seal of their wine jars at the same time. The wine jars collided and they raised their heads to drink heartily. Crack! A moment later, the two of them drank it in one gulp and threw their wine jars onto the ground. Su Zimo pulled up his sleeves and wiped away the wine that spilled from the corner of his lips. Thank you, Yun Ting. However, I'll take revenge for today's feud personally in the future. At that moment, Su Zimo had already decided that if the Green Lotus True Body were to die, the moment the Martial Dao Prime Body came out of seclusion would be the time for Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others to die. At that moment, no one could understand what Su Zimo was implying. Everyone thought that Su Zimo was merely spouting gibberish because he was shocked silly by his imminent death. After all, if he died, there would be no future, let alone revenge. Only Book Immortal Yun Zhu understood the killing intent in Su Zimo's words. She knew that Su Zimo was prepared for Desolate Martial to attack. Chapter 2556 2556 Slaying Soul Collection 2556 Slaying Soul Collection. Meng Yao said indifferently, Yun Zhu, it's time to discipline this younger brother of yours. Understand that trouble comes from the mouth. Threatening perfected immortals. Perfected immortal Wu Feng harumphed coldly. If not for the fact that he's a prince of the Zixuan immortal kingdom, we would have had enough reason to kill him with his words earlier on. Yun Ting looked at perfected immortal Wu Feng and the others and grinned. You guys are afraid, right? Once I advance to the perfected immortal realm, you can start washing your necks clean. The perfected immortals felt their hearts turn cold. To be fair, given Yun Ting's talent and potential, he would definitely become a perfected immortal in the future. Once Yun Ting became a perfected immortal and came knocking, not many of them would be able to defend against him. Sword Immortal Yu Hua frowned. Don't get entangled with a junior. Search Su Zimo's soul first and see what his background is. Old Man Soul Collector gave a strange laugh and leaped, swooping down towards Su Zimo. Swoosh! A figure flashed and suddenly blocked in front of Old Man Soul Collector. The figure did not make any motions and merely waved its hand gently. Instantly, Old Man Soul Collector's expression changed and he retreated hurriedly when he sensed a terrifying aura. Everyone focused their gazes. It was Book Immortal Yun Zhu. Fairy Yun Zhu, what is the meaning of this? Perfected Immortal Wu Feng asked with a frown. Nothing much. Yun Zhu said indifferently, I just can't stand you guys bullying other. Meng Yao's expression was cold. Yun Zhu, everything today has nothing to do with you. Don't be a busybody. Yun Zhu raised her head and met Meng Yao's gaze. Without backing down at all, she said slowly, I'm going to be a busybody today. Anyone who dares to step forward will be going against me. Yun Zhu. Don't blame me for not showing mercy. The moment she said that, a commotion broke out in the crowd. Nobody expected the Zither Immortal and Book Immortal to be in a standoff at the Divine Firmament Immortal meet and even show signs of fighting. Even Yun Ting frowned. He did not want Su Zimo to die in such an aggrieved manner. However, he felt a little jealous when he saw his sister rush out and protect Su Zimo. He had long realized that his sister seemed to have a close relationship with Su Zimo. However, he had not expected that things between them had developed to such an extent. Could it be? Su Zimo was touched and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Yun Zhu, you don't have to do this. You won't be able to defend against them alone today. He was mentally prepared. If the Green Lotus True Body was killed, the Martial Dao Prime Body would launch a frenzied revenge. Yun Zhu did not retreat still and sent a voice transmission. I'm not only stepping in for you, but also because I feel indignant. They've gone too far. In reality, when Yun Zhu was young, she loved to fight for injustice and could not stand the unfairness of the world. As such, she offended many sects and factions. That was also why she was locked in the library later on. All these years, Yun Zhu had been cultivating her character and read a lot of books. She rarely appeared. However, she had always maintained the chivalry and integrity in her heart and had not forgotten about it. Otherwise, she would not have saved Su Zimo, whom she had never met before, back in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, and berated perfected Immortal Jingyu that he was extremely shameless to bully the weak. And now, her relationship with Su Zimo was no longer the same as before. There was no way she could sit by idly. If she were to retreat today, she would not be able to get through the knot in her heart. Meng Yao sneered and nodded to Old Man Soul Collector, indicating for him to continue forward and ignore Book Immortal Yun Zhu. She did not believe that as a princess of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom, Yun Zhu would really go against so many perfected immortal experts for the sake of a disciple of the Academy. Old Man Soul Collector hesitated for a moment. However, at the thought that there were dozens of perfected immortals backing him, Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Zhu Wuying, perfected Immortal Wu Feng and other experts, he felt more confident and continued charging towards Su Zimo. Old Man Soul Collector swept past Yun Zhu swiftly, but she did not move at all. Meng Yao, perfected Immortal Wu Feng and the others exchanged glances and relaxed with smiles. Not bad. Fairy Yun Zhu. That's a wise move. Perfected Immortal Wu Feng chuckled. Before he could finish, a change happened and the smile on his face froze. Swoosh. Old Man Soul Collector swept past Yun Zhu and arrived before Su Zimo. Before he could make a move, a jade brush appeared in Yun Zhu's hands. Without even looking, she swiped behind her. The void seemed to have been sliced into two by the jade brush. Old Man Soul Collector paused in his tracks and his gaze suddenly froze. The life force in his body drained rapidly and half of his head seemed to have been sliced off neatly by some sharp weapon. His essence spirit was destroyed on the spot and he died. This was an emperor weapon that Yun Zhu had obtained in Avicii back then. It was sharp and terrifying. Pest! The cultivators gasped when they saw that. A perfected immortal was dead. Furthermore, he died in the hands of Book Immortal Yun Zhu. At that moment, everyone truly experienced Yun Zhu's determination and killing intent. Previously, although everyone felt strange that Yun Zhu was willing to speak up for Su Zimo, they could still accept it. But now, Book Immortal Yun Zhu was willing to fight against the top perfected immortals of the major factions present for Su Zimo. That was completely beyond everyone's imagination. In such a tense situation, a single move would affect the entire situation. Once they fought, it would be difficult for them to have any leeway. Yunju's attack this time round to kill Old Man Soul Collector was equivalent to not giving herself any way out. She wanted to fight Zither Immortal Meng Yao and the others to the end. The Book Immortal was way too decisive and Old Man Soul Collector was killed on the spot before he could react. In truth, which of the four great fairies are weak? What do you guys think is the relationship between Fairy Yunju and Su Zimo? Judging from Fairy Yunju's attitude, why does it feel like there's something going on between her and Su Zimo? There's indeed something strange about it. I don't think she'll react as such even if Yun Ting was in danger, right? Su Zimo of the Academy. How much fortune did he accumulate over multiple lifetimes, such that both the painting and book immortals are willing to stand up for him? The cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall discussed. Immortal King Qing Yang was still sitting grandly on his chair. Even with the death of a perfected immortal, he had no intention of interfering. Meng Yao's expression turned cold as she said coldly, "Yunju, are you going to be enemies with us? If that's the case, don't blame us for being nasty." Sword Immortal Yu Hua shook his head gently. "Fellow Taoist Yunju, you won't be able to protect Su Zimo alone. Why waste your energy? I'll do my best." Yunju's tone was indifferent but resolute. The reason why Meng Yao and the others brought so many perfected immortal experts was because they were worried that something might happen. Therefore, even when Yunju appeared, everyone was prepared. Perfected Immortal Wu Feng summoned his edgeless broadsword and declared, "Book Immortal, I've long heard of your reputation. This is a rare opportunity for me to test your strength." Zhu Wuying stood out without saying anything. Sword Immortal Chun Feng chuckled and withdrew the sword on his waist. He pointed at Yunju from afar and the sword swayed with the wind, trembling slightly. Meng Yao assumed a lotus position and had already taken out her zither from her storage bag. "Haha, let me join in the fun as well." Perfected Immortal Mu Feng of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect burst into laughter. In the blink of an eye, all the top perfected immortals stood out and surrounded Book Immortal Yunju. Chapter 2557 2557 1 against 5 2557 1 against 5 Zither Immortal Meng Yao, Sword Immortal Chun Feng, Zhu Wuying, Perfected Immortal Wu Feng and Perfected Immortal Mu Feng. The five of them alone were top-tier experts among perfected immortals. All of them had cultivated to level 4 of the perfected One Realm, the Paradise Void Realm. Their combat strength was strong and they were famous outside. Furthermore, there were dozens of perfected immortal experts watching covetously. Although no one had seen Book Immortal Yunju in action personally and the four great fairies were ranked together, it was publicly acknowledged that the Chess Immortal was the #1 in combat strength and the other three fairies were comparable. It was impossible for the Book Immortal to protect Su Zimo against such an encirclement. Sword Immortal Chun Feng, Zhu Wuying, Perfected Immortal Wu Feng and Perfected Immortal Mu Feng stood in 4 directions and surrounded the Book Immortal and Su Zimo. Although Zither Immortal Meng Yao seemed like she was not involved, she assumed a lotus position and placed the ancient zither in front of her. As long as her fingertip moved, she could join the battlefield at any moment and release a terrifying sound domain attack. The Book Immortal held the jade brush in her hands with a grim expression. Buzz! Zither Immortal Meng Yao fiddled with her zither gently with her fingertip and a zither sound suddenly echoed. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the Divine Firmament Hall changed. It was murderous and desolate. Instantly, it was as though a massive army had charged in. The sound of the zither was also a signal to attack. Sword Immortal Wu Feng, Sword Immortal Chun Feng and Perfected Immortal Mu Feng attacked at the same time and charged towards Yunju. Sword Immortal Wu Feng's broadsword was seamless and powerful. Waving his arm, the Tao fruit behind his head shone with rays of light and true essence condensed. Even without using any dermic arts or divine powers, the slash alone released an unparalleled power. Even if there was a mountain in front of him, it would be split into 2 by that sword. Sword Immortal Chuanfeng's sword was as soft as a willow and moved erratically with the wind. However, the range of its sword force was extremely large and enveloped Yunju and Su Zimo. Wielding a gigantic saber in his hands, Perfected Immortal Mu Feng danced with a cold saber beam. It was as though raging tides were charging towards them and waves were surging in a suffocating manner. A casual attack from the three perfected immortals was already earth-shaking. Although Zhu Wuying did not move, his figure seemed to have vanished into the void and was as faint as a wisp of smoke, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Once the shadowless sword attacked, it would be even more dangerous. The situation Yun Zhu was facing was even more difficult than she had imagined. Not only did she have to defend against the encirclement of the four perfected immortals, she also had to protect Su Zimo from their attacks. With that, the pressure on her increased exponentially. Yun Zhu channeled her Dao fruit and balls of light shone behind her head. True essence condensed on the jade brush and stabbed towards the three incoming perfected immortals. Clang! The first to collide against Yun Zhu's jade brush was Chun Feng Jian. However, Chun Feng Jian was like the wind. The moment they collided, his sword quivered and was about to slash past the jade brush. Unexpectedly, a lotus flower blossomed from the tip of Yun Zhu's brush and blocked the secondary momentum of Chun Feng Jian. Supreme Divine Power, Mystic Brush Flower Blossom. Yun Zhu's jade brush stabbed 3 times in succession and 3 lotus flowers appeared, blocking the attacks of the 3 perfected immortals. The first attack of the 3 perfected immortals was fruitless. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd outside the hall. To think that although Fairy Yun Zhu looks scholarly and weak, she can release such combat strength with a casual attack. She's not disadvantaged even against 3 people. None of the 4 great fairies are easy to deal with. I heard that even the painting immortal who is the weakest in combat is not to be trifled with. What does the painting immortal have? I heard that her cultivation is only at level 3 of the perfected one realm, the Hollow Nether realm. She's far inferior to the Zither and Book immortals, right? That's not for sure. Didn't you see Sword Immortal Yu Hua restrain the painting immortal before she could attack? Another person analyzed. I'm guessing that Sword Immortal Yu Hua is still wary of Fairy Mo Qing. The reason why the 4 great fairies are so famous today is not only because of their beauty, but also because they are among the top-tier experts of perfected immortals to begin with. Xia Ling had a calm expression and was indifferent when he heard the discussions around him. The Book Immortal's combat strength was indeed very strong and might even be above Chun Feng Jian and the others. Even so, Book Immortal Yun Zhu was alone and could not turn the tides. Earlier on, the 3 perfected immortals did not use their full strength. Furthermore, Zhu Wuying was still looking for an opportunity and could appear at any moment. Zither Immortal Meng Yao had yet to attack as well. If the 2 of them attacked, the Book Immortal would definitely lose. As expected of the Book Immortal, your cultivation is not shallow. Sword Immortal Chun Feng chuckled and flicked his sword gently. The sword quivered and buzzed endlessly. The 3 perfected immortals attacked once more. This time round, the attacks of the 3 perfected immortals were clearly even more ferocious and they no longer held back. Behind Yun Zhu's head, the halo released by the Dao fruit grew larger as well. Yun Zhu held her jade brush and wrote a few ancient words in the void rapidly. Kill. Annihilate. Tear. Collapse. Shock. Shatter. Break. The 7 words were not from this generation's civilization, and were filled with an ancient aura. Every single stroke contained a mysterious and powerful power. The 7 ancient words scattered and charged towards the 3 perfected immortals. Right then, Zhu Wuying attacked. The sword stabbed towards the back of Su Zimo's head. A warning flashed in Su Zimo's mind. Yun Zhu sensed the commotion over here as well. Her gaze focused as she threw out the jade brush in her hands in reverse towards the shadowless sword. Suddenly, Zhu Wuying paused and disappeared once more. That move was merely a feint. When he reappeared, he had already arrived beside Yun Zhu and stabbed out silently without a trace. Freeze! Yun Zhu channeled her Dao fruit wildly and hollered. This was not the immobilizing spell, but a supreme divine power, time stop. Zhu Wuying's figure paused for a moment and he broke free from the restraints of the supreme divine power instantly. Although the impact on him was almost negligible, that momentary delay allowed Yun Zhu to seize the opportunity to stride forward. She extended her slender finger that was like a sharp brush tip and stabbed towards Zhu Wuying's glabella. Her fingertip was sharp and before it could touch Zhu Wuying, a trickle of blood seeped out from the latter's glabella. At that moment, a doubt rose in Yun Zhu's heart. The shadowless sword of the 3 sword immortals seemed to be weaker than before. She shouldn't have been able to hurt the shadowless sword if this was him at his peak. What Yunju did not know was that Zhu Wuiying's 60,000 years of lifespan was severed by Su Zimo's fleeting moment back in Songyun Mountain Range. In truth, Zhu Wuiying's combat strength had already decreased from his peak. Right then, Meng Yao's zither sounded once more. Yunju frowned slightly and felt a sharp pain in her eyes as her arm trembled slightly. Zhu Wuiying's eyes lit up as he seized the opportunity to attack. The shadowless sword was silent and unfathomable. Xing! Yunju retreated swiftly, but she was still a step too late. She was injured by the shadowless sword and a wound appeared on her abdomen. Fresh blood flowed and stained her plain clothes instantly. Meng Yao sat at the outer perimeter the entire time and seemed like she was not involved. However, each time she made a move, she determined the trajectory of the entire situation. Both parties had just exchanged a few blows, but Yunju was already injured. Yunju, this is just a warning for you. Meng Yao said indifferently, the next time, you won't just be injured. Humph. Yunju had a fearless expression as she sneered. That's all there is to the dignified zither immortal. To think that I've been ranked alongside you all these years. How laughable. Chapter 2558. 2558 Massive Battle. 2558 Massive Battle. In reality, many cultivators watching also felt that the Zither Immortal's actions were a little inappropriate. However, none of them had anything to do with Su Zimo. What did Su Zimo's life and death have to do with everyone? Furthermore, Su Zimo had been too famous over the years and was like the sun in the midday skies. Many cultivators gloated in the depths of their hearts when they saw Su Zimo suffer such a calamity. Most of the time, evil deeds were baseless. In fact, it might even stem from the fact that one can't bear to see others doing better than them. Break! Right then, a shout sounded from the direction of Heaven and Earth Academy. Beams of light burst forth from Mo Qing's body, and the sword qi sealed in her body by sword immortal Yu Hua was purged by her. Immediately after, Mo Qing channeled her essence spirit and the Dao fruit shone with rays of light. She broke free from the ropes on her body and charged out in a flash, arriving beside Su Zimo. Sword immortal Yu Hua frowned in surprise. Logically speaking, given Mo Qing's cultivation, there was no way she could break free from his seal. It seemed like his junior sister's cultivation had increased significantly over the years as well. Senior sister. Su Zimo called out. Before he could continue, Mo Qing interrupted. Don't be afraid. The disciples of Heaven and Earth Academy are not at the stage where they can be bullied by others. The moment she said that, a painting book appeared in Mo Qing's palm. This painting book could be considered as her destiny dermic treasure. Even after cultivating for many years, she had only drawn more than 10 pages here with various ferocious beasts and powerful living beings. Now that Mo Qing exerted strength in her palm, the painting book was torn apart instantly and countless pieces of paper floated in midair. Su Zimo was shocked. He knew that senior sister Mo Qing would definitely not use this painting book casually. That was because every single painting on it was fused with the dermic Tao and divine charm of the living beings drawn. Each painting might even take senior sister Mo Qing thousands or even tens of thousands of years. Once a painting was torn apart and summoned, the living being on it would appear as well, and its combat strength would not be different from what she had seen. However, once it was torn apart, it would also mean that the painting would disappear completely. Therefore, Mo Qing would not tear the paintings apart unless she had no other choice. Back in Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, when she faced off against Zither Immortal Meng Yao, she merely tore off a single painting to express her determination. But now, Mo Qing had torn more than 10 pages of the painting book apart. It was clear how furious she was. When she saw that, Yunju sighed internally. Mo Qing's actions were equivalent to releasing all the time, energy and effort she had spent all these years. How courageous and resolute did she have to be? A shuddering aura emanated from the pieces of paper floating in the divine firmament hall, as though a supreme ferocious spirit was about to descend. Grr! Roar! Ow! Suddenly, a deafening dragon roar sounded from the battlefield. A slender divine dragon covered in scales was the first to appear in everyone's line of sight. It circled in midair and roared into the skies. Immediately after, accompanied by a phoenix cry, a divine phoenix was born from the flames. Its feathers were crystalline red like iron arrows that were burned scarlet. Right in front of everyone, terrifying ferocious beasts and powerful living beings descended upon the divine firmament hall one after another. There were ferocious beasts such as the Tao Wu and Tao Tai, as well as immortal beasts such as the Bai Zai and Swan and I. In fact, there were some living beings that nobody had seen before with human faces, beast bodies, wings and a violent aura. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 terrifying ferocious beasts and powerful living beings descended into the world and circled around Imoqing and the other two with a murderous aura.
Go!
Imoqing ordered without hesitation. More than 10 ferocious beasts charged towards Meng Yao, perfected Immortal Wu Feng and the others. What are we waiting for? Let's attack together. Meng Yao shouted softly. Flying Immortal Sect and the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom had planned this for a long time. Dozens of perfected immortals were here because they were worried that something like this would happen. Dozens of perfected immortals advanced one after another to fight the ferocious beasts and living beings. Meng Yao looked at Sword Immortal Yu Hua, who was not far away, and sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. Fellow Taoist Yu Hua, this is your mistake. You should resolve it. Don't worry. Sword Immortal Yu Hua had a calm expression as he sent a voice transmission. Leave Imoqing to me. Hurry and kill Su Zimo lest anything else happens if we drag on for too long. With that said, Sword Immortal Yu Hua entered the battlefield as well. To think that such a huge commotion would happen before the Divine Firmament Immortal meet even began. All 3 great sword immortals are in the fray. The 3 great sword immortals and 3 of the 4 great fairies are gathered into a fight. Such a scene is unprecedented. Who would have thought that a battle of this level was caused by a heaven immortal? Actually, I'm quite envious of Su Zimo. To think that 2 fairies would step in personally to protect him. This treatment, Tezke Tisk. The battlefield was in chaos as more than 10 ferocious beasts and living beings fought against dozens of perfected immortal experts. The world shook and dust billowed. However, the cultivators at the outer perimeter discussed excitedly. Junior sister, you shouldn't have attacked. Sword Immortal Yu Hua looked at Imoqing in disappointment and shook his head gently. You're way too foolish. Why do you have to do this for a lowlife like Su Zimo? Don't call me your junior sister. You're not worthy of being the #1 legacy disciple of Heaven and Earth Academy. Imoqing looked at Sword Immortal Yu Hua coldly. A large part of her anger earlier on was because of Sword Immortal Yu Hua. As the #1 disciple of the Academy, Sword Immortal Yu Hua did not protect his fellow sect mate from being bullied by other factions. Instead, he attacked her in Yongruoxu. Although Imoqing was indeed naive, she was not stupid. She could tell that there was a high chance Sword Immortal Yu Hua was involved in today's matter as well. Ha! Sword Immortal Yu Hua was so angry that he laughed instead. I'm not worthy? Who is then? Su Zimo? His background is unknown and there's even a chance he's from another race. There's no need to say anything more. Let's fight. Imoqing's tone was cold. I've cultivated in the academy for many years but I've never fought you before. Today is a good time for me to learn from you. Junior sister, you should know that I don't want to hurt you. Sword Immortal Yu Hua shook his head helplessly. Imoqing could not be bothered to speak to him anymore and summoned the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram, spreading it in front of her. There were 4 figures drawn on the diagram. Among them, 3 of them were dim and blurry. The origins of the 3 figures could not be seen clearly. However, the figure on the left had golden hair, blue eyes and was extremely handsome. As his blood chi surged, his body shone with a blinding golden light and his gaze was burning. He could not be ignored. It was a god race being. There were a total of 4 figures in the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram. The god, ghost, immortal and fiend figures. Right now, Imoqing had only comprehended the god figure. Therefore, only a figure appeared completely on the diagram. She predicted that if she could comprehend another figure, she would be able to advance to level 4 of the perfected 1 realm, the Paradise Void realm. So, you've truly obtained the Divine Ghost Immortal Fiend diagram. It's no wonder why you were able to break free from my sword chi seal. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was enlightened and paused for a moment. Suddenly, he smiled and his eyes flashed with a sharp glint. All right, I'll show you my Moon Essence Sword today.
Buzz.
The Moon Essence Sword had already arrived in the palm of Sword Immortal Yu Hua. The sword shone with a glow that was as bright as the moon and was clearly not an ordinary item. Chapter 2559. 2559 Black Stone. 2559 Black Stone. With a thought of Mo Qing's spirit consciousness, the god figure on the divine ghost immortal fiend diagram walked out of the diagram and turned into a completely corporeal god race being. The cultivation realm of this god race being was identical to Mo Qing's. They were both at level 3 of the perfected one realm, Hollow Nether realm. Interesting. Sword Immortal Yu Hua smirked. However, even a true god race being won't be able to defend against my Moon Essence Sword. Swoosh. In a flash, Sword Immortal Yu Hua charged towards the god race being summoned by Mo Qing. He waved the Moon Essence Sword in midair and stabbed out hundreds of times in the blink of an eye. The god race being circulated his blood chi and attacked consecutively. However, he was barehanded after all and could not defend against the sharpness of the Moon Essence Sword. Before long, the god race being was covered in injuries. The Moon Essence Sword was a 9 tribulations pure yang spirit treasure that could even penetrate the body of the god race being. Bang! Boom! The god race being released his bloodline phenomenon right away, and an ancient and mysterious pyramid appeared behind him with millions of living beings prostrating beneath it. The figure summoned by the divine ghost immortal fiend diagram was lifelike and could even release a bloodline phenomenon. Humph! Sword Immortal Yu Hua sneered and swiped his finger sword across the Moon Essence Sword. The sword shone brightly and suddenly released a bedazzling sword beam. Moon Essence Slash. Boom! The sword beam collided with the bloodline phenomenon of the god race being. With a slight pause, the bloodline phenomenon of the god race being was pierced by the sword beam of the Moon Essence Sword and collapsed. The cultivation realm of this god race being was still a level lower at the end of the day. Furthermore, the secret skill released by Sword Immortal Yu Hua earlier on was also one of his killing moves. Mo Qing had a calm expression as she took out an ink brush from her storage bag and channeled her Dao fruit, condensing true essence on the tip of the brush. Using true essence as ink and the void as paper, she drew a few casual strokes on the paper and swiftly drew a soldier riding on a horse with a dagger axe. The cultivation realm of this soldier was also at the perfected one realm. However, he was only at level 1. With a thought of Mo Qing's spirit consciousness, the soldier appeared in the void and charged towards Sword Immortal Yu Hua. Mo Qing drew a few more strokes in the void and outlined a few divine weapons. All of them appeared as though they were real and charged towards Sword Immortal Yu Hua as well. While Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Mo Qing were fighting, perfected Immortal Wu Feng, Sword Immortal Chun Feng and perfected Immortal Mu Feng attacked Yun Zhu again. Zhu Wuying vanished once more. This time round, under the cover of dozens of perfected immortals and more than 10 ferocious beasts and living beings, no one could discover his tracks. A threat that could explode at any moment was the most terrifying. Meng Yao placed her fingers gently on the ancient zither and looked at Yun Zhu and Mo Qing in the battlefield with a mocking expression. It was only a matter of time before the 2 fairies that were ranked alongside her were defeated. Su Zimo would definitely die today. The book Immortal was one of the 4 great fairies after all, and was also a princess of the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom. Sword Immortal Chun Feng and the others were still wary. Otherwise, the book Immortal might not have been able to last till now. Suddenly, a phantom-like figure appeared behind Su Zimo. Zhu Wuying attacked once more and stabbed towards the back of Su Zimo's head. It was silent and did not even reveal any killing intent. Although Zhu Wuying could hide from Su Zimo's 5 senses, he could not hide from his spirit perception. The moment Zhu Wuying appeared, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he wanted to summon his primeval body as well as Golden Cicada shedding to avoid Zhu Wuying's assassination attempt. As for Yun Zhu and Mo Qing, they realized that Su Zimo was in danger at the same time and wanted to help. Unfortunately, Mo Qing was held back by Sword Immortal Yu Hua and was completely disadvantaged. As for Yun Zhu, she was surrounded by Sword Immortal Chun Feng and the other 2 and was struggling to defend, unable to escape. Just as the 2 of them were burning with anxiety, the sound of Meng Yao's zither sounded without warning. Clang! The sound of the zither was murderous and distracting. The timing of the zither sound was way too precise. When Yunju heard the sound of the zither, her ears hurt and she was slightly dazed. 3 more wounds appeared on her body and blood gushed out. On the other side, Sword Immortal Yu Hua's gaze intensified as he shouted softly, "Junior sister, you've lost." Mo Qing was not the only one. Even the god race being summoned was affected by Meng Yao's zither sound. Sword Immortal Yu Hua seized the opportunity and sliced the god race being into 2 with a single slash. Without the help of the god figure, Mo Qing was no match for Sword Immortal Yu Hua at all. In the blink of an eye, Yunju and Mo Qing had already fallen into danger and could barely protect themselves, let alone save Su Zimo. Against Zhu Wuying's assassination attempt, Su Zimo was about to summon his primeval body and release golden cicada shedding. However, he heard the sound of the zither as well and could not help but shudder. That momentary delay was more than enough for a top-tier assassin like Zhu Wuying. Right from the beginning, Zither Immortal Meng Yao had not fought personally. However, every single sound of her zither would change the entire situation. A cold smile appeared on Zhu Wuying's face. It was as though he could already see Su Zimo's head pierced by his sword. Su Zimo is dead. Xia Ling shook his head gently and sighed. Perhaps this was fate. Although Su Zimo managed to avoid Zhu Wuying's assassination attempt once, he could not avoid it a second time. When Yang Ruoxu saw that, he clenched his fists with widened eyes. Even Immortal King Qingyang thought that Su Zimo would definitely die. Suddenly, he frowned and looked to the side with a changed expression. Swoosh! A black streak of light pierced into the battlefield at an astonishing speed and struck the shadowless sword instantly. Initially, the shadowless sword was without a trace. The use of light and the environment could hide the body of the sword perfectly. In fact, it could even deceive the entire world and evade the 5 senses, making it difficult for others to notice. However, not only did the black light strike the shadowless sword accurately, it even exposed its entire body completely. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. Someone was actually able to dispel Zhu Wuying's assassination sword. It was truly impressive. In reality, bystanders did not know how shocked Zhu Wuying was at the moment. The black light earlier on did not only strike his shadowless sword. The power released by the black light was incomparably domineering and was even transmitted into his body through the shadowless sword. His organs were shaken severely. What immense strength! Zhu Wuying was secretly alarmed and swallowed a mouthful of blood that was already gushing to his mouth. Su Zimo seized the opportunity to escape from the shadowless sword and turned back with lingering fear. Thud! Right then, the black light that struck the shadowless sword fell and let out a crisp sound beside Zhu Wuying's feet. Su Zimo, Zhu Wuying and the other cultivators looked over instinctively and focused their gazes. The black light was an ordinary black stone. On the surface, it looked like a black chess piece used for playing Go. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly thought of someone. Zhu Wuying, Meng Yao and the others were shocked when they saw the black stone. It was clear that they recognized its origin. She's here too. Sword Immortal Yu Hua had a headache when he guessed the identity of the intruder. Chapter 2560. 2560 Chess Immortal Jun Yub. 2560 Chess Immortal Jun Yu. Not far away, a woman sped over. Her sleeves fluttered and her long hair was tied up simply, resembling a young nun. The woman did not have any accessories in her hair, neck, earlobes or even body. Although she looked extremely simple, every single move she made exuded an indescribable divine charm of the Dermic Tao. The woman did not wear any makeup and was elegant. Or rather, even a little makeup on that peerless face would destroy that natural beauty and make one feel pity. She carried a gigantic square chessboard on her back. The black and white chess pieces landed on the square chessboard like stars. It was as though the woman was carrying the starry skies on her back and stepping on the vastness to barge into the divine firmament hall. She exuded a suffocating and powerful aura. Apart from Immortal King Qingyang, everyone else could clearly sense the pressure. The first time everyone saw the woman, they were not attracted by her peerless beauty. Instead, they were shocked by her powerful aura. Although there were millions of cultivators in the divine firmament hall, none of them dared to harbor any designs on this woman. Chess Immortal Jun Yub. Immortal King Qingyong raised his brow and said in surprise. The moment those words were said, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 levels of waves. The crowd exploded instantly and countless voices were raised. Chess Immortal. So, this is the Chess Immortal. To think that Fairy Junyu would be here as well. The gathering of the 4 great fairies is an unprecedented spectacle. The aura of the Chess Immortal is way too strong, as expected of the number 1 in combat strength among the 4 great fairies. I wonder why the Chess Immortal appeared at this time. As everyone discussed, Su Zimo looked at Chess Immortal Junyu, who had just saved his life, and felt emotional. When he saw the black chess piece, he guessed that the Chess Immortal might have arrived. When he truly saw Fairy Junyu, he was even more certain that this woman was the Chess Immortal. Apart from the Chess Immortal, no one else could match her bearing. The 4 great fairies could be considered as peerless and beautiful. However, everyone's bearings and temperaments were completely different, and each had their own merits. The Chess Immortal was probably the only one who could make everyone feel immense pressure the moment she appeared. Only, Su Zimo was puzzled. Did Chess Immortal Junyu save him casually, or did she rush over specially? If it was the former, the explanation was naturally easy. It was said that apart from being obsessed with chess, the Chess Immortal loved to fight and often looked for experts to fight. But if it was the latter, why? Su Zimo recalled carefully and was certain that he had never seen Chess Immortal Junyu before. So, it's Fairy Junyu. It's been thousands of years since we last met. Sword Immortal Yu Hua cupped his fists towards Chess Immortal Junyu with a smile and greeted. Junyu glanced casually at Sword Immortal Yu Hua. The last time I challenged you, you hid and avoided me. Why are you here today? Sword Immortal Yu Hua blushed and cursed internally. The surrounding crowd stirred and a few chuckles sounded. Yun Zhu pursed her lips and smiled. Fellow Taoist Jun Yu was still the same. She spoke without any reservations and did not give anyone any face. However, even she did not know if Jun Yu's sudden appearance was a blessing or curse for them. That was because she was not close to Chess Immortal Jun Yu and did not have much of a relationship. They merely fought once in the past. From Mo Qing's expression, there was even less of a relationship between her and Jun Yu. Sword Immortal Yu Hua could not hold it in any longer after being exposed by Jun Yu. He coughed gently and forced a smile. At that time, I was indeed cultivating in seclusion. When I came out of seclusion, I heard that you have already left. I did not hide from you intentionally. Fairy Junyu.
Oh.
Jun Yu's expression was indifferent. Since you're here today, let me witness your moon essence sword. Sword Immortal Yu Hua's expression was terrible. If he were to reject in front of everyone, it would be equivalent to admitting that he had avoided meeting Chess Immortal Junyu because he was afraid of her challenge.
Zing!
A zither sound sounded and Meng Yao stood up slowly. She looked at Chess Immortal Junyu and smiled gently. Fellow Taoist Junyu, we have something important to do today. Once we're done with this, it's your freedom no matter who you want to challenge. Sword Immortal Yu Hua heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, Meng Yao stood out and saved the situation in time. Put away that lousy zither of yours when you talk to me. It's annoying. Junyu glared at Meng Yao coldly. Her words were sharp and merciless. Meng Yao's smile froze on her face too. Zhu Wuying had just been injured by Jun Yu's chess piece. When he saw how domineering and aggressive Junyu was, the hatred in his heart intensified. Unable to hold it in, he sneered. Junyu, today's matter has nothing to do with you. It's best if you don't interfere. How do you know that it has nothing to do with me? Junyu asked instead. Zhu Wuying harumphed coldly. An outsider from another race has appeared in Heaven and Earth Academy. Today, we're going to get rid of this outsider and remove a hidden ailment for the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain. Could you be here because you have something to do with this outsider, Chess Immortal Junyu? Are you here to spoil things? Upon hearing Zhu Wuying's words, Sword Immortal Yu Hua's heart sank. Chess Immortal Junyu had a domineering personality and loved to fight. Zhu Wuying's words would definitely arouse Jun Yu's belligerent heart. Perfected Immortal Mu Feng and Chess Immortal Junyu were both from Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. He knew the personality of his senior sister even better. He burst into laughter hurriedly to smooth things over. Senior sister Junyu, please calm down. Fellow Taoist Wuying was just being hasty and spouting nonsense. Senior sister, please don't take it seriously and don't take it to heart. Junyu glared at perfected Immortal Mu Feng and asked, who asked you to join forces with them? Although Junyu's tone was calm, there was a hint of coldness in it. Perfected Immortal Mu Feng felt the pressure increase exponentially. Gulping, he laughed dryly. No one. It's my own decision. Senior sister, you might not know it yet, but Yu Hai of our sect was killed by Su Zimo of the Academy in the Azura battlefield. I'm also trying to take revenge for Yu Hai. Yu Hai died in the hands of a cultivator of the same cultivation realm. It's his own fault for not being skilled enough. Who can he blame? Before perfected Immortal Mu Feng could finish, Junyu interrupted him and said coldly, as a perfected immortal of an immortal sect, you're going to take revenge on a heaven immortal personally? Not only that, you're joining forces with other perfected immortals? Perfected Immortal Mu Feng was drenched in sweat from Junyu's reprimand and did not know what to do. Although they were both perfected immortals, the difference in status between them was extremely great in Mountain Sea Immortal sect. Perfected Immortal Mu Feng had an awkward expression. Senior sister, I. Scram. Junyu hollered. Perfected Immortal Mu Feng shuddered and did not dare to say anything more. Lowering his head, he returned to the seats of Mountain Sea Immortal sect and felt his face flush and burn. The atmosphere in the Divine Firmament Hall turned extremely tense.
Foo-foo.
Sword Immortal Chun Feng chuckled and broke the silence. Fellow Taoist Junyu, please calm down. We're doing this out of goodwill so that we can get rid of the outsider from another race. We're not bullying the young because of our cultivation advantage.
Is that so?
Junyu swept her gaze across Meng Yao and the others and said slowly, with me here today, let's see who dares to touch him. Chapter 2561. 2561 I'll kill you first. 2561 I'll kill you first. Everyone was shocked when the Chess Immortal said that. Nobody expected the Chess Immortal to defend Su Zimo so much after appearing and even say such harsh words, ignoring Meng Yao, the three great sword immortals and the other perfected immortal experts completely. Meng Yao and the others had ugly expressions. What's up with Su Zimo? He's just a heaven immortal who ascended from the lower worlds. How can he get the three great fairies to come down and protect him? It's not just the three great fairies. The conflict between the four great fairies today was all because of him. The surrounding cultivators started discussing as well. The eyes of many cultivators were still burning with the flames of gossip, as though they had discovered an incredible secret. Pfft, what the hell am I seeing today? Someone was filled with emotions and muttered. The four great fairies fell out and fought because of a man from the academy. Such explosive news will probably spread through the entire heavenly world in a few days. Why do you guys think the Chess Immortal helped Su Zimo? I reckon that it has nothing to do with Su Zimo. It's because of what Ju Wuying said earlier on that enraged Fairy Junyu completely. That's right. Fairy Junyu loves to fight to begin with and wants to fight for injustice. Ju Wuying even spouted nonsense, giving the Chess Immortal a reason to attack. Even Su Zimo was confused, let alone others. He was certain that he did not know Fairy Junyu, let alone have any relationship with her. Could it be, as the surrounding cultivators had discussed, the Chess Immortal loved to fight and was enraged by Ju Wuying, so she made use of this excuse to fight? Yunju glared at Su Zimo with a strange expression. She was smart and would naturally not make wild guesses like the others. There was definitely no way Chess Immortal Junyu would be so domineering because she was enraged by a few sentences from Ju Wuying. Furthermore, Junyu's words earlier on clearly meant that she wanted to protect Su Zimo. It was not as simple as being belligerent. Yunju knew that neither she nor Mo Qing had much of a relationship with Chess Immortal Junyu. Junyu's sudden appearance could not be because of them. There was only a single possibility. Su Zimo was definitely the reason why Junyu appeared. You look like you're usually honest and gentlemanly. How do you end up knowing everyone? Seems like you've gone around getting acquainted with all of us four great fairies. Yunju secretly sent a voice transmission to Su Zimo's spirit consciousness with a strange tone. Su Zimo had a lost and innocent expression. He truly did not know where Chess Immortal Junyu came from or why she would help him. Sword Immortal Yu Hua coughed gently. Fairy Jun Yu. Fellow Taoist Wu Ying's words earlier on were indeed a little inappropriate. Please don't take offense. Fellow Taoist, if you want to spar with me, I'll be waiting for you after this matter is over. Sword Immortal Yu Hua was definitely one of the top 10 perfected immortals in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain and was famous. But now, he was willing to bow down and show weakness. He had indeed given Chess Immortal Jun Yu enough face. The other few perfected immortals chimed in as well, unwilling to have a conflict with Jun Yu. Zhu Wuying's face was livid and he remained silent. Jun Yu glanced at Sword Immortal Yu Hua and asked, "Did you not understand what I said?" Fellow Taoist Yu. Sword Immortal Yu Hua frowned. Surveying her surroundings, Jun Yu said slowly, "I'll say it one more time. I'll kill anyone who dares lay a hand on him today." Unable to hold it in any longer, Zhu Wuying sneered, "Jun Yu, you're too arrogant and conceited. Do you think that you can defeat us perfected immortals single-handedly?" Zhu Wuying was one of the 3 great sword immortals after all. All of them were prominent figures. How could they endure being threatened and reprimanded by Jun Yu right now? Therefore, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others did not stop Zhu Wuying from going against Jun Yu. Zhu Wuying was right. The Chess Immortal was indeed strong in combat. However, could they not defeat a single Chess Immortal if they joined forces? Zhu Wuying sneered with a dark expression, "In fact, I've just stabbed him once. What can you do to me?" "I'll kill you first then." Jun Yu's gaze turned cold. The moment she said that, she flipped her hand and removed the chessboard behind her, smashing it towards Zhu Wuying's head. This was the Chess Immortal, someone who attacked and killed without hesitation. This time round, Zhu Wuying was long prepared. As an assassin, he did not intend to fight the Chess Immortal head-on and was prepared to avoid her sharpness. He wanted to join forces with the other perfected immortals and look for an opportunity to attack. However, when he moved, he realized that Jun Yu's square chessboard was still above his head. At his cultivation realm, he could flee thousands of kilometers away with a single thought. But now, no matter what divine powers or secret skills he released, he could not escape from Jun Yu's chessboard. Jun Yu's seemingly simple attack did not seem like she had used any divine powers or secret skills. However, in reality, her dermic Tao was contained in the astral chessboard in her hands. The astral chessboard had 19 horizontal and vertical lines intersecting evenly. There were a total of 361 intersection points, forming 324 squares. Every single inch-sized square seemed to be a world of its own. The entire chessboard formed an even wider starry sky that was boundless like the vast firmaments and endless lands. There was no distinct direction to the chessboard and it converged as one. No matter how Zhu Wuying struggled, he could not escape from the range of the astral chessboard. He was like a chess piece that was sucked tightly by the astral chessboard and could not escape. Su Zimo, who was initially watching from the side, had a cold glint in his eyes. Opportunity. This was a rare opportunity. The perfected immortal level battle earlier on was earth-shaking and dizzying. Since his cultivation realm was not high enough, it was useless even if he joined the battle. Zhu Wuying did not appear, and he could not even find any traces of the latter. But now that Zhu Wuying was trapped by the astral chessboard and could not escape, it was the perfect opportunity for him to strike. Without hesitation, Su Zimo channeled his spirit consciousness and released a supreme divine power towards Zhu Wuying, fleeting moment. Su Zimo did not care whether his opponent was a supreme assassin and one of the 3 great sword immortals. Since they wanted to kill him, he would not show them any mercy. He would take their lives while they were down. Furthermore, the reason why perfected Immortal Burial Knight was severely injured and died back then was also related to Zhu Wuying. In the eyes of others, Su Zimo's actions seemed extremely laughable. That was because the supreme divine powers of heaven immortals were of no threat to perfected immortals. A perfected immortal expert could defeat them with ease by condensing their true essences. Some perfected immortal experts with powerful physiques and bloodlines could even escape unscathed from the supreme divine powers of heaven immortals with their bodies alone. However, Zhu Wuying's expression changed starkly when he sensed Su Zimo's actions. In Songyun Mountain Range, he was injured by Su Zimo's supreme divine power and lost an entire 60,000 years of lifespan, causing him to decline from his peak. At that moment, the astral chessboard had already descended. Zhu Wuying could not be distracted at all and could only release all his blood qi. Condensing his true essence, he slashed in reverse and blocked the astral chessboard above his head for the time being. The shadowless sword collided with the astral chessboard and Zhu Wuying shuddered, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Right then, fleeting moment descended. Zhu Wuying was suppressed by the astral chessboard and could not move at all. He could only endure that supreme divine power head-on. His lifespan deteriorated rapidly. Crack, crack, crack. With the reduction of his lifespan coupled with the deterioration of his blood qi, Zhu Wuying's strength was also decreasing rapidly after he was injured. There was no way he could defend against the power of the astral chessboard. The astral chessboard smashed down and Zhu Wuying's body exploded instantly. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. Chapter 2562. 2562 Massive Battles. 2562 Massive Battle. One of the three great sword immortals, Zhu Wuying, was dead. The cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall were shocked. Even the death of Old Man Soul Collector in the hands of Book Immortal earlier on did not cause such a huge reaction. After all, Old Man Soul Collector was only an ordinary perfected immortal with some special skills. As for Zhu Wuying, he was from the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and was one of the three great sword immortals. He had been famous for many years with unfathomable assassination methods, often shocking the entire 9 firmaments. To think that he would die on the spot today. Furthermore, in everyone's eyes, Zhu Wuying was killed by chess immortal Jun Yu in a single move and was almost completely helpless. In the entire Divine Firmament Hall, only a few people could tell that something was amiss. Jun Yu was directly involved and could sense it even more clearly. On the surface, Zhu Wuying died in her hands. However, in reality, given the power she released earlier on, it was difficult for her to kill Zhu Wuying within a single move. Both parties would have to be in a stalemate for a moment. In that short period of time, many variables could happen. For example, if Meng Yao, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others attacked, Zhu Wuying would have a chance to escape. However, the moment they exchanged blows, Su Zimo released his supreme divine power and struck Zhu Wuying. Under normal circumstances, the supreme divine power of a heaven immortal could not threaten an expert of Zhu Wuying's level. However, while both parties were in a stalemate, Jun Yu could clearly sense that Zhu Wuying's lifespan was decreasing while the power within his body deteriorated as well. That was the reason why Zhu Wuying could not hold on any longer and his essence spirit was destroyed by her astral chessboard. As for Zhu Wuying, he died without a corpse left and no one knew about the changes that happened to him in that instant. Rather than saying that Zhu Wuying died in her hands, it would be more accurate to say that Su Zimo made use of her strength to trap and kill Zhu Wuying. Jun Yu glanced sideways at Su Zimo deeply. She was entrusted by someone to protect this disciple of the academy. However, she did not know much about this scholarly cultivator and had only heard a little about him. It was only now that Jun Yu realized that this person was indeed special. To be able to release a supreme divine power that could threaten a perfected immortal at the heaven immortal realm meant that this divine power had already touched the threshold of a peerless divine power. Even at the moment of his death, Zhu Wuying did not expect that he would die in the hands of a heaven immortal. Perhaps that was his fate. Back in Songyun Mountain, Zhu Wuying tried to assassinate Su Zimo and Su Zimo retaliated with fleeting moment. Unfortunately, Su Zimo failed to kill him. But now, Zhu Wuying had attacked Su Zimo for the second time. Su Zimo looked for an opportunity and counterattacked for the second time. Finally, he made use of Chess Immortal Jun Yu to trap and kill the latter. The Chess Immortal is way too domineering. That's right. Fairy Jun Yu scolded perfected Immortal Mu Feng the moment she appeared and now, she killed Zhu Wuying with a single move. Her combat strength. I don't think things will end well for both parties today. Fairy Meng Yao's side is also filled with perfected immortals who have been famous for a long time. They have the advantage in numbers and won't retreat so easily. A commotion broke out in the crowd. Fairy Jun Yu, aren't you being too ruthless? A perfected immortal of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom shouted with a dark expression. Among the perfected immortals of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom, Zhu Wuying had an extremely high status. He was equivalent to Sword Immortal Yu Hua in Heaven and Earth Academy, and Meng Yao in Flying Immortal Sect. Now that Zhu Wuying was dead, the perfected immortals of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom would definitely not let things go. A sharp glint gradually appeared in Sword Immortal Chuanfeng's eyes as he said slowly, "Fairy Junyu, since you insist on protecting this outsider, don't blame us for being merciless." Sword Immortal Yu Hua's aura intensified as he said in a deep voice, "Chess Immortal Junyu, since you want to challenge me, I'll do as you wish today."
Foo-foo.
Yun Zhu chuckled with a mocking gaze. She challenged you to a one-on-one battle and now, you're about to join forces with others? Don't you have any shame?
That's right.
Yun Ting added fuel to the fire and shouted, "Sword Immortal Yu Hua, if you even have any dignity left, fight the Chess Immortal one-on-one." Sword Immortal Yu Hua's expression darkened and he remained silent. How would he dare to fight the Chess Immortal alone? If it was a one-on-one fight, there was no doubt about the outcome. Furthermore, the Chess Immortal was clearly someone who had no qualms. If this woman were to go crazy, she would even dare to kill him. In the hearts of many people, the Chess Immortal was a crazy woman who looked for people to fight everywhere. Everyone wanted to avoid her.
Zing!
Meng Yao plucked the zither strings and interrupted everyone's thoughts once more, attracting a lot of attention. Today's matter stems from the identity of Su Zimo of the Academy. Meng Yao said indifferently, "Anyone who isn't of our race will definitely harbor evil intentions. This lad infiltrated Heaven and Earth Academy, and even wants to fight for the Heaven ranking. Due to his nefarious intentions, he is a common enemy of everyone. There's naturally no need for us to fight one-on-one against an outsider of another race." Meng Yao's statement resolved the awkwardness of Sword Immortal Yu Hua temporarily.
That's right.
Perfected Immortal Wu Feng shouted as well, "Junyu, you can't protect him alone." Meng Yao and the others had planned this for a long time and had already launched an attack today. Now that things had come to this, it was like an arrow on a bow that had to be fired. Yun Zhu smiled gently and declared, "Wu Feng, don't forget that Sister Mo Qing and I are still here."
Yes.
Mo Qing did not say much but nodded vigorously. "There's no need for the two of you to attack. Just protect him." Junyu glanced sideways and said to Yun Zhu and Mo Qing. Thereafter, she turned around and swept her gaze across Meng Yao, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others. "You guys can be considered as top-tier perfected immortals in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain. Since we're all gathered today, it saves me the trouble of searching for you one by one.
Let's fight."
Junyu hollered and threw the astral chessboard in the direction of Meng Yao. The astral chessboard spun in midair and instantly, everyone seemed to be in the starry skies with millions of stars surrounding them in a bedazzling manner. In fact, everyone fell towards the astral chessboard uncontrollably.
Swoosh!
It was way too fast. In the blink of an eye, the astral chessboard arrived before Meng Yao. Meng Yao's expression changed starkly. Although she had yet to collide with the astral chessboard, the terrifying power contained by it made her feel suffocated and even had a strong sense of danger.
So strong.
Meng Yao did not have time to think and did not dare to fight the astral chessboard head-on as she fiddled with the zither with her fingers. A zither sound sounded. Immediately after, her figure seemed to have fused into the sound of the zither and vanished from the spot. This was an escape technique that she had cultivated and would not be released unless she had no other choice. She was under immense pressure from just a single attack of the Chess Immortal. Meng Yao managed to avoid the astral chessboard thanks to her escape technique. However, another perfected immortal of Flying Immortal Sect stood behind her. Although Meng Yao was gone, the momentum of the astral chessboard was still strong. The perfected immortal could only watch as he had no time to react at all. Instantly, a blood mist spread as he was smashed into pieces by the astral chessboard. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. Another perfected immortal was slain after Junyu attacked. That exchange triggered the entire battlefield as Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Chunfeng Jian, perfected Immortal Wu Feng and the other experts entered the fray. Chapter 2563. 2563 Astral Chess Pieces. 2563 Astral Chess Pieces. The moment Junyu attacked, She wanted to take on dozens of perfected immortal experts single-handedly. Even Mo Qing and Yun Zhu could not help but praise internally when they saw that. If one wanted to fight for the title of Supreme Perfected Immortal, they would have to possess extraordinary methods and shocking boldness. Jun Yu is indeed very powerful, but she's still slightly inferior to him. Suddenly, Mo Qing thought of someone and could not help but recall the scenes in Avicii in a daze.
Immortal King Qingyong leaned against his seat and looked at everything calmly with a faint smile on his face without any intention of interfering.
He wanted to see how today's matter would end. A battle at the perfected immortal realm was much more interesting to him than the divine firmament immortal meet.
The central region of the divine firmament hall had already turned into a battlefield.
The battle between the perfected immortals was terrifying, and many divine weapons, divine powers and secret skills streaked through the battlefield. Every single collision was earth-shaking. The aftershock of the collision between the perfected immortals could kill many heaven immortals with ease, and the surrounding cultivators retreated repeatedly. This time round, Meng Yao fiddled with her fingers and the sound of the zither lingered. The dozens of ferocious beasts and living beings summoned by Mo Qing's painting book gradually could not hold on any longer. Their dermic Tao vanished and dissipated. Led by Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Sword Immortal Chun Feng and Perfected Immortal Wu Feng, the remaining dozens of Perfected Immortal experts released a torrential storm of attacks at Jun Yu. Astral chess pieces. Against such pressure, Jun Yu's fighting spirit intensified. She threw the chessboard in her hands in midair and released a unique supreme divine power. Swish! 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 The chessboard spun slowly, and the 361 black and white chess pieces on it bounced up rapidly, shooting towards the dozens of perfected immortals in the surroundings. Every single chess piece on the astral chessboard looked like they were not much larger than a fingernail. However, in reality, every single chess piece was refined continuously by a star and fused with the dermic Tao before condensing. Although they looked like chess pieces, they were actually stars. Otherwise, Jun Yu would not have been able to injure Zhu Wuiying with the power of a single chess piece. The release of 361 chess pieces was equivalent to 361 stars charging out at the same time with an unstoppable might. The expressions of the dozens of perfected immortals changed starkly. Meng Yao had a grim expression as the halo released by the Tao fruit spread continuously. She strummed her zither with all 10 fingers and increasing precision.
At the same time, the sound of the zither became more hurried and a murderous intent was triggered, as though it had materialized.
Meng Yao had already pushed her zither skills to their limits and tried her best to help the other cultivators resolve the 361 black and white chess pieces that were charging over. The sound of the zither was bleak and endless. Ripples appeared in the void and collided against the 361 black and white chess pieces. In reality, if Meng Yao had not stepped in this time round and used her zither sound to defend against the collision of the many black and white chess pieces, more than half of the dozens of perfected immortals would have died. Even Zhu Wuiying could not defend against it, let alone the other perfected immortals. Boom! 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 The 361 black and white chess pieces broke through the obstruction of the sound of the zither and collided against the divine weapons, divine powers and secret skills of the dozens of perfected immortals, letting out a series of deafening sounds. Sparks flew and light burst forth. Poof! 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 Even with the zither immortal's attack, she could not neutralize the full power of the black and white chess pieces. Half of the dozens of perfected immortals spat out blood and fell after being severely injured. There were also a few perfected immortals who were not strong enough and died on the spot after being struck by a few chess pieces. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. The chess immortal was so domineering that she could even gain the upper hand against so many people. Even the combined forces of the zither immortal, Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Sword Immortal Chun Feng and Perfected Immortal Wu Feng could not suppress the aura of the chess immortal. A few black and white chess pieces smashed towards Meng Yao. Clang! Clang! Meng Yao had a calm expression as she plucked the strings of the zither a few times. The sound of the ancient zither condensed into divine weapons that collided against the incoming chess pieces. With a series of crisp sounds, the divine weapons formed by the sound of the zither dissipated and the power of the black and white chess pieces was almost depleted. Meng Yao waved her robes and brushed away the chess pieces with ease. Sword Immortal Yu Hua, Sword Immortal Chun Feng and Perfected Immortal Wu Feng used their respective methods to defend against Jun Yu's supreme divine power. That move alone was enough to tell the difference between the other perfected immortals and Meng Yao's group of 4. Jun Yu's attacks did not stop. After releasing the astral chess pieces, she leaped onto the chessboard and sped towards Sword Immortal Yu Hua. Sword Immortal Yu Hua had just resolved the attack of the black and white chess pieces when Jun Yu stepped on the astral chessboard and closed in.
Clang!
Sword Immortal Yu Hua did not have time to think as he slashed in reverse against the astral chessboard. Immediately after, Sword Immortal Yu Hua channeled his blood qi to its limits and released his bloodline phenomenon. At the same time, Sword Immortal Chun Feng, Perfected Immortal Wu Feng and even Zither Immortal Meng Yao attacked. They released their bloodline phenomenons together and charged towards Jun Yu.
Boom!
Jun Yu did not hesitate either. Suddenly, a boundless starry sky appeared behind her, vast and mysterious. The starry skies seemed to be her chessboard. As for Jun Yu, she stood in the heaven essence position of the chessboard as though she was invincible and could rule over the starry skies and control their power.
Boom!
The bloodline phenomenons of both parties collided and devoured continuously in an earth-shaking manner.
Break!
Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Sword Immortal Chun Feng released the unique sharpness and killing power of the Sword Dao. The two of them joined forces and finally broke Jun Yu's starry skies into 2. Of course, the bloodline phenomenons of the 4 of them could no longer hold on and swayed. The 4 of them attacked once more. Sword Immortal Chuanfeng's sword technique was incomparably delicate and relentless. His attacks came one after another, sealing the space around Jun Yu completely. Sword Immortal Yu Hua's edge was ferocious and his sword technique was even sharper. Their sword techniques were one tough and gentle, one yang and one yin. Coupled with one another, their combat strength increased exponentially. As for Perfected Immortal Wu Feng, he wielded his sword in his left hand and axe in his right. He joined forces with Meng Yao and coordinated with her, cutting off all of Jun Yu's escape routes. The 4 perfected immortals joined forces and released shocking combat strength. Even Yun Zhu and Mo Qing, the 2 bystanders, felt that something was amiss and frowned slightly. Suddenly, unhurriedly, Jun Yu suddenly took a step in a direction. This step was incomparably mysterious and imperceivable. However, with just a single step, she broke free from the encirclement of the 4 perfected immortals and withdrew herself. 9 palace subtle steps. When he saw Jun Yu's movement technique, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he murmured softly. This footwork was released by a black-robed woman when the martial Dao prime body underwent the true martial 10th tribulation. Later on, he found out from Lin Luo that this footwork was called the 9 palace subtle steps and was imparted to her by Fairy Ling Long. Up till now, in Su Zimo's knowledge, Fairy Ling Long and Lin Luo were the only 2 people who knew the footwork. Even Lin Lei and the human monarch did not manage to learn it. Back then, by some freak coincidence, he released it once. However, in reality, he had not mastered the 9 palace subtle steps, and it was merely a flash of inspiration that was difficult to replicate in the future. To think that he would see this mysterious and strange footwork reappear on the chess immortal today. Chapter 2564. 2564 Communication. 2564 Communication. Of course, be it Lin Luo or chess immortal Jun Yu before him, none of the 9 palace subtle steps were as precise as the black-robed woman's steps that the martial Dao prime body saw when he underwent tribulation transcendence. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, Jun Yu broke free from the encirclement of Meng Yao, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the other 3 and counterattacked without stopping. Arriving before Meng Yao, Jun Yu raised her palm and slapped down on her face. Heaven Essence Strike. Jun Yu hollered. The center of the astral chessboard was the Heaven Essence position. This secret skill was equivalent to turning the entire battlefield into a chessboard. By occupying the Heaven Essence position, one could mobilize all the power of the entire chessboard and release their strongest attack. Meng Yao and the others attacked flawlessly, but Jun Yu managed to break free. With that, Meng Yao and the others were instantly disadvantaged. It felt as though both parties were playing chess. Jun Yu's single amazing move had turned the tides completely. The battlefield was a chess game and every single step was a gamble. Although Meng Yao had the advantage in numbers, she was merely Jun Yu's chess piece in this chess game. Meng Yao's heart skipped a beat as she retreated hurriedly. At the same time, she raised her ancient zither and condensed true essence to shield herself.
Bang!
Jun Yu's palm landed on the bottom of Meng Yao's zither with a dull sound of defeat. Meng Yao shuddered.
Even with the ancient zither to defend and neutralize a lot of the power of the Heaven Essence strike, Meng Yao could not defend against it.
Her organs vibrated and she spat out a mouthful of blood.
Buzz!
Not only that, one of the strings on the zither was snapped by a single palm strike from Jun Yu. The string snapped so close that Meng Yao could not react in time. The snapped zither string was incomparably sharp and whipped Meng Yao's cheek, leaving a bloodied wound. Her peerless face that was initially devastatingly beautiful was now left with such a wound. Her flesh was overturned and she even looked a little menacing. Many cultivators were shocked when they saw that. Right now, Meng Yao was coughing blood and her long hair was scattered. She was in a sorry state and no one would associate her with the four great fairies. Of course, for a perfected immortal, such a wound on the face was superficial. With a little rest and recuperation, she would recover to her original state without any scars. However, this matter still dealt a huge blow and damage to Meng Yao. She loved the feeling of being the center of attention and being high and mighty. She was long used to countless cultivators surrounding her and kneeling beneath her skirt, revered by everyone. Right now, her wretched and menacing appearance was witnessed by millions of cultivators. This was an unprecedented blow for her. It would also have a huge negative impact on her reputation.
Jun Yu!
Meng Yao realized something and shrieked with hatred in her eyes. However, at that moment, she was no longer in the mood to fight. She seized the opportunity to withdraw from the battlefield, wanting to heal the wound on her face right away. Jun Yu did not continue chasing. The moment she attacked Meng Yao, she moved her feet and the astral chessboard spun rapidly, smashing towards perfected Immortal Wu Feng on the other side. Perfected Immortal Wu Feng's pupils constricted with a grim expression.
At that moment, he felt as though a vast and mysterious starry sky was surging towards him. He had nowhere to hide.
Kill!
Perfected Immortal Wu Feng roared and condensed his true essence.
He slashed left and right at the starry skies before him.
Boom!
Sparks flew when the broadsword and gigantic axe collided against the astral chessboard. Perfected Immortal Wu Feng felt a sharp pain in his hands. His palm was torn and the broadsword and gigantic axe flew from his hands. His arms were numb from the shock. Perfected Immortal Wu Feng's expression changed starkly as he turned to flee without hesitation. At that moment, the Moon Essence Sword and Spring Wind Sword had already arrived before Jun Yu. The sword beams were cold and sharp. The sword Dao was the most lethal and Jun Yu did not dare to be careless. With a single thought, more than 10 black chess pieces sped over and landed on the body of the Spring Wind Sword. It was as though those chess pieces possessed a powerful demonic power that was attached to the Spring Wind Sword and could not be flung off. Sword Immortal Chuanfeng's sword Dao was exquisite and it was pervasive like the wind. But now, there were more than 10 black chess pieces piled on the Spring Wind Sword. Suddenly, Sword Immortal Chunfeng felt that his Destiny Dermic sword was extremely heavy and could not release any exquisite sword moves. On the other side, more than 10 white chess pieces were attached to Sword Immortal Yu Hua's sword. The advantage of the Moon Essence Sword was in its speed. Sword Immortal Yu Hua pushed the speed of his sword Dao to its limits. That was the reason why he was able to gain his current reputation. However, there were more than 10 white chess pieces piled on the Moon Essence Sword and his sword moves became incomparably slow, losing their greatest threat. Any Heaven Immortal present would be able to dodge it, let alone Chess Immortal Jun Yu. What was even stranger was that there seemed to be a mysterious connection between the black and white chess pieces. Although the two Sword Immortals were attacking Jun Yu, their sword Dao trajectories had already deviated completely under the influence of the black and white chess pieces. They could not even touch the corner of Jun Yu's clothes. Even as Jun Yu fought against the 4 perfected immortals, she did not stop attacking the other perfected immortals. Those who were proficient in chess were extremely terrifying in the grand scheme of things. Once the dozens of perfected immortals attacked her, it would be equivalent to falling into her trap and everyone would be under her control.
Poof, poof.
A perfected immortal expert from Flying Immortal Sect and the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom respectively was killed by Jun Yu's black and white chess pieces and died on the spot. Of the strongest 4 perfected immortals, Meng Yao and Wu Feng were forced to retreat while Yu Hua and Chun Feng could be severely injured at any moment. Even with the power of the two sword immortals, they were struggling to defend against Jun Yu's attacks. The other perfected immortals were crushed like chickens and dogs in Jun Yu's chess game. Not long after the fight, including Zhu Wuying, 10 perfected immortal experts died in Jun Yu's hands. The smile on the face of Immortal King Qingyang gradually disappeared as he frowned. Initially, he had no intention of interfering. He wanted to see how much of a mess this group of juniors could cause. However, the scene before him had already exceeded his expectations. Chess Immortal Jun Yu was even more domineering and decisive to kill than he had imagined. She did not have the slightest bit of gentleness a woman should possess and was fearless. In fact, Immortal King Qingyang suspected that if he did not stop her, Jun Yu might even be able to kill Meng Yao, Yu Hua and the others. Just as Immortal King Qingyang was hesitating, his expression changed. Suddenly, he reached into the void and grabbed a messenger talisman. When Immortal King Qingyang saw the messenger talisman, he narrowed his eyes slightly and pondered for a moment before standing up. He released the might of an Immortal King's spirit consciousness and descended on the divine firmament hall.
Phew!
The tremendous spirit consciousness pressure descended and both parties on the battlefield could no longer continue fighting. Sword Immortal Yu Hua and Sword Immortal Chun Feng were already drenched in sweat and looked pale. If Immortal King Qingyang was a half-step slower, even the both of them would have to flee. Chapter 2565. 2565 Settled Dust. 2565 Settled Dust. All right, today's matter will end here. The voice of Immortal King Qingyang was neither fast nor slow, but it contained an invisible might. Everyone present, Chess Immortal Jun Yu included, did not persist in their actions. During this period of time, the wounds on Meng Yao's face had already healed. She looked at Su Zimo, who was safe and sound not far away, and finally felt indignant. She could not help but say, "Immortal King Qingyang, this lad has a suspicious identity. Senior, please take action and verify his true identity."
There's no need.
Immortal King Qingyang said indifferently. The sect master of the academy has just sent a letter and it stated very clearly that this lad is not from the dragon race and has nothing to do with the dragon world. The sect master of the academy had stepped in. Upon hearing that, everyone realized that Su Zimo was completely out of danger. As for Meng Yao, Sword Immortal Yu Hua and the others who had just slandered him, they looked even more ridiculous now. I long knew that Su Zimo definitely had nothing to do with the dragon world. That's right, if he was from another race, wouldn't the sect master of the academy have discovered it long ago? How could he even join the sect? It seems like Heaven and Earth Academy thinks highly of Su Zimo to be able to get the sect master of the academy to step in and protect him. Among the cultivators who were discussing, many of them were shouting earlier on, wanting nothing more than to tear Su Zimo into pieces. But now, the speed at which their expressions changed was breathtaking. Sword Immortal Yu Hua's expression was terrible. They were on the brink of success today. He knew in his heart that it would be difficult for him to have another chance as such to attack Su Zimo in the future. Given the potential Su Zimo currently displayed, he would definitely be able to become a perfected immortal in the future. At that time, he would become a personal disciple of the sect master. Furthermore, given Su Zimo's foundation, this person might even threaten his status in the academy in the future. Right now, he could only rely on Yun Ting to kill Su Zimo in the fight for rank 1 on the heaven ranking. That was the only way he could resolve this matter. The sect master of the academy is truly unfathomable and can calculate everything. He even knows about what's going on in Divine Firmament Palace. Immortal King Qingyang murmured meaningfully. "Junior brother Su, you can rest assured now." Mo Qing heaved a sigh of relief. The academy has always been fair and will definitely not let you suffer or be framed. Master has personally appeared to protect you this time round. Let's see who else dares to say anything. Mo Qing looked at Sword Immortal Yu Hua in disgust. Sword Immortal Yu Hua's behavior this time round had made her completely disappointed in this senior brother. To begin with, she did not have much feelings towards Sword Immortal Yu Hua. However, at the very least, she acknowledged him as her senior brother. From this day forth, She was not even willing to acknowledge his identity as senior brother Yu Hua. Su Zimo remained silent. He was naturally grateful that the sect master of the academy was willing to step in. However, he did not agree with Mo Qing's words of fairness. For someone like Sword Immortal Yu Hua who joined forces with outsiders to attack his fellow sect mate, he should be severely punished. At best, his cultivation should be crippled and he should be kicked out of the academy. Even if he was killed, it wouldn't be overboard.
However, the sect master of the academy did not say anything.
Of course, he might have some difficulties or it might be due to other reasons. Although Su Zimo was displeased, he would not mention it nor would he make use of the sect's power to suppress Sword Immortal Yu Hua. After today's matter, things were irreconcilable between them. Only one of them would be alive in the future and there was no room for negotiation. If he made use of the sect rules to punish Sword Immortal Yu Hua, it would be way too easy on the latter. One day, Su Zimo would settle him personally. Right then, Immortal King Qingyang raised his voice and said, "Due to the changes that occurred in the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet, the fight for the heaven ranking will be postponed for 3 days." No one had any objections to that. Firstly, the Divine Firmament Hall was already in a mess and needed to be repaired. This was originally a battlefield prepared for the heaven ranking battle. How could it withstand the killing power of dozens of perfected immortals? The entire battlefield had already turned into ruins with almost no place to settle down. Secondly, more than 10 perfected immortal experts died in the battle earlier on. Even Zhu Wuiying, one of the 3 great sword immortals, was dead. This was considered a huge matter. Be it the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom or Flying Immortal Sect, they both required some time to deal with it.
Of course, the 3 days would not amount to nothing for the many cultivators who were here for the Divine Firmament Immortal Meet.
In Divine Firmament Palace, there were various marketplaces where cultivators could exchange for treasures and it was bustling. Every year, some cultivators would find treasures in these marketplaces. After saying that, Immortal King Qingyang left. Many cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall discussed the battle of the perfected immortals excitedly and gradually retreated. Some of them wandered around Divine Firmament Palace. Some of them returned to their residences to recuperate and adjust their conditions, prepared to face the ranking battle of the heaven ranking 3 days later. Su Zimo, be honest. What's your relationship with my sister? Right then, Yun Ting's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind with an unfriendly tone. We can be considered as friends. Su Zimo replied. Friends? Who are you kidding? What kind of a friend can make my sister fight with her life on the line? Yun Ting scoffed and said sourly, even if something happens to me, my sister might not be so nervous. He had long noticed that Yun Zhu's treatment of Su Zimo was unusual. Yun Zhu's behavior today confirmed his guess even more. Su Zimo, let me warn you, don't harbor designs on my sister. Yun Ting sent another voice transmission and said fiercely. Su Zimo was a little helpless. You've misunderstood. There's nothing between me and Yun Zhu. In his opinion, the reason why Yun Zhu was willing to stand out and help him was because he had once saved her life in Avicii. This matter involved the martial Dao prime body, and he would naturally not explain it in detail to Yun Ting. Hey! Right then, Yun Zhu suddenly sent a voice transmission to Su Zimo's spirit consciousness and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "How do you know Junyu?" Su Zimo said, "I don't know her. Today is also the first time I'm seeing her." Naturally, Yun Zhu would not believe it. She sneered internally and pouted. You don't know her and yet she's so protective of you? I'm not too sure why either. Su Zimo could vaguely guess the reason but he could not confirm it. Su Zimo, follow me. Right then, Junyu turned to Su Zimo and said. Ha! Stunned for a moment, Su Zimo asked instinctively where. My room. Junyu said before leading the way. Wah! Su Zimo hesitated for a moment. In order to verify his guess, he decided to follow. Gritting her teeth, Yun Zhu rolled her eyes at Su Zimo and thought to herself, how dare you say that you don't know Junyu? You're even going to her room now. Mo Qing had a calm expression and did not say anything. However, she followed behind Su Zimo. Sister Mo Qing. Yun Zhu held Mo Qing back hurriedly. Su Zimo was invited by Junyu. Let's not go over. How can that do? Mo Qing frowned slightly. What if those people refuse to give up and attack junior brother Su again in these 3 days? It's safer to follow them. That's true. Yunju's eyes lit up as she nodded. Let's go take a look together. Chapter 2566. 2566 Ling Long Zugzwangs. 2566 Ling Long Zugzwangs. Su Zimo left the Divine Firmament Hall with Chess Immortal Jun Yu, and headed towards the resting place of Mountain Sea Immortal Sect. Painting Immortal Mo Qing and Book Immortal Yun Zhu followed behind as well. Many cultivators dropped their jaws in shock when they saw that. Nobody knew the exact details and their imaginations were naturally running wild. At that moment, Su Zimo did not know that the gossip between him and the 3 fairies would spread through the 9 Firmament Immortal domain in less than 3 days. Furthermore, the commotion and impact caused by this matter far surpassed the Divine Firmament Immortal meet. Before long, Su Zimo followed Jun Yu to a quiet residence. After passing through a fake mountain and flowing water, Su Zimo and Jun Yu entered a room in a courtyard surrounded by greenery before closing the door. Yun Zhu and Mo Qing followed them all the way to the residence. When Su Zimo and Jun Yu entered the room, Mo Qing gradually stopped in her tracks. She stood in the courtyard and admired the flowers and plants around her, as though she had no intention of continuing into the room. Sister Mo Qing, why aren't you continuing? Yun Zhu blinked and asked. Mo Qing was surprised and asked, where to? Yun Zhu pointed to a room not far away and whispered, Sister, aren't you curious what the 2 of them are doing inside? No. Mo Qing shook her head gently. The door is tightly shut, so it must be something important. Let's not disturb them. Furthermore, guarding here is enough to ensure junior brother Su's safety. There's no need for us to enter. Yun Zhu stomped her feet gently and looked at the innocent Mo Qing exasperatedly, feeling both angry and amused. There were probably not many things in this world that could interest this sister Mo Qing of hers. Although Yun Zhu was curious, Mo Qing was ambivalent. When Mo Qing saw that Yun Zhu seemed to be troubled, she frowned and thought for a moment, as though she understood something. Sister, are you worried that junior brother Su will be in danger inside? Mo Qing smiled. Don't worry, given fellow Taoist Jun Yu's behavior earlier on, she shouldn't be here to harm junior brother Su. Yun Zhu was speechless. Naturally, she could not voice her thoughts and could only stammer and stand outside with Mo Qing. In the room. The moment the door closed, Su Zimo could clearly sense that the entire room seemed to be shrouded by an invisible force that could block all senses and detection from the outside world. It was as though he had entered Jun Yu's chess game and could only be manipulated by the other party. Fellow Taoist Jun Yu, thank you for standing up for me earlier. Su Zimo bowed slightly to Jun Yu and cupped his fists in thanks. Have a seat. Jun Yu did not reply. Instead, she pointed to a cushion on the ground and invited Su Zimo to take a seat before kneeling on the opposite cushion. Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before arriving opposite Jun Yu. The 2 of them faced one another and were less than 2 arms apart. The moment Su Zimo sat down, Jun Yu spoke. You don't have to thank me for today's matter. Instead, I should apologize to you. Jun Yu saved his life and she even wanted to apologize to him. Su Zimo was dumbfounded and almost bounced up from the cushion. He looked into Jun Yu's eyes carefully and after ensuring that the other party was not joking, he laughed bitterly and asked, Fellow Taoist Jun Yu, well, how should I begin? I don't think we knew one another previously, right? Indeed we don't. Jun Yu replied, the reason why I'm here is because I was entrusted to do so. Is it Immortal Queen Ling Long of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain? Su Zimo probed. Yes. Jun Yu nodded. Earlier on, when Jun Yu released the 9 palace subtle steps, Su Zimo had already guessed that possibility. Now that Jun Yu admitted it personally, he was certain. Fairy Ling Long had spent a lot of time with a human monarch and should know about the existence of the martial Tao prime body. Naturally, she could guess that desolate marshal who killed everyone in the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain was his martial Tao true body. That was the reason why Fairy Ling Long entrusted Chess Immortal Yu, who was in the divine firmament immortal domain to come and save him. However, Zimo did not know what the relationship between Fairy Ling Long and chess immortal Junyu was or how they knew one another. Junyu pondered for a moment. I've known immortal Queen Ling Long for a long time. Initially, I was the one who headed to the green firmament immortal domain to challenge Lin Lei. That was how I got to know immortal Queen Ling Long. Later on, I heard that immortal Queen Ling Long was also good at chess, so I stayed in the green firmament immortal domain and sparred with her. At that point, Junyu paused. Zimo lamented internally. It said that chess immortal Junyu loves to fight and is obsessed with chess. Indeed, the reason why she got to know Lin Lei and Fairy Ling Long was because she went to challenge them and sparred in chess. Junyu continued, I'm obsessed with chess. Before I met immortal Queen Ling Long, I had never lost either. Zimo raised his brows slightly. In other words, chess immortal Junyu could not compare to Fairy Ling Long in terms of chess. Chess had nothing to do with the cultivation realms of both parties. It was entirely based on one's understanding of chess, comprehension and ability to control the entire situation. Therefore, Fairy Ling Long's victory over Junyu was not considered bullying. What was the score between you and immortal Queen Ling Long? Zimo asked. Junyu replied, I never won. Zimo. Junyu said, in terms of understanding and comprehension of chess, I'm similar to immortal Queen Ling Long. However, in chess, immortal Queen Ling Long's judgment and control of the situation are far superior to mine. When he heard that, Zimo's heart skipped a beat and a look of realization flashed through his eyes. Fairy Ling Long's Dermic Dao was indeed extremely useful in chess and she could seize the initiative in every aspect. To me, immortal Queen Ling Long is like a teacher and a friend. Junyu sighed gently. Initially, I wished to acknowledge her as my master. However, she did not take me in because she was worried that I would be implicated due to the internal and external troubles of the Battle Kingdom. However, I benefited immensely every time I played against immortal Queen Ling Long. 1,000 years ago, immortal Queen Ling Long suddenly called me over and entrusted me with something. She wanted me to help take care of you if you encounter any danger in the divine firmament immortal domain from then on. At that point, Zimo finally understood the entire situation. 1,000 years ago, the martial Dao Prime Body saved Lin Lei and Lin Luo. Fairy Ling Long was grateful and summoned chess immortal Junyu, entrusting her with this matter. It was not because Fairy Ling Long had accurately divined that he would encounter danger at the divine firmament immortal meet 1,000 years later. Actually, I should have arrived early for this divine firmament immortal meet. Junyu said, however, before we parted ways last time, immortal Queen Ling Long gave me 9 different Zugzwangs for me to break out from and comprehend. Immortal Queen Ling Long once said that some of her Dermic Dao is in the 9 Zugzwangs. For the past 1,000 years, I've been trying to break out from the 9 Ling Long Zugzwangs and had benefited from them. The 9 palace subtle steps that I used to break free from the encirclement of Meng Yao and the others in the Divine Firmament Hall previously was hidden in the 9 Ling Long Zugzwangs. I see. Zimo was enlightened. It was no wonder why Junyu could release the 9 palace subtle steps. It was because immortal Queen Ling Long was imparting the Dao through chess. From that, it could be seen how much immortal Queen Ling Long liked and valued Junyu. Junyu said apologetically, I was lost in the Zugzwangs and forgot about the divine firmament immortal meet. That was why I was late and nearly caused a huge mistake to happen. Fellow Daoist, there's no need for that. No matter what, I was only spared because you arrived in time. Zimo expressed his thanks once more. Chapter 2567 2567 Dao Inheritance Through Chess 2567 Dao Inheritance Through Chess. Let's play a chess game. Suddenly, Junyu said. Ha! Zimo was stunned for a moment before shaking his head. I don't know how to play chess and I've never played with anyone before. He had only come into contact with the Dao of chess when he was young and studying. However, he was not interested in this aspect and did not study it. When he started cultivating thereafter, he was even less interested in it. Do you know the rules? Junyu asked again.
I only know a little.
Zimo replied. He was puzzled as to why Junyu would suddenly want to play chess with him. What Su Zimo did not know was that Junyu was even more puzzled. Back when Fairy Ling Long imparted the 9 Ling Long Zugzwangs to her, she once told Junyu that if the latter had a chance, she should show them to Su Zimo. Fairy Ling Long even said that the two of them could communicate with one another if there was anything they did not understand. Initially, Junyu thought that since Fairy Ling Long said that, Su Zimo would definitely be proficient in chess. However, she did not expect that Su Zimo only knew a little about chess and had never played before. That's a little strange. Junyu frowned slightly. No matter what, since Fairy Ling Long was the one who asked her to do it, she did not think too much about it. Let me teach you. Since she wanted to show Su Zimo the Ling Long Zugzwangs, she first had to teach him the rules. It was not difficult for Su Zimo to get started at chess. Junyu merely explained a few things casually. Given his talent, Su Zimo had already mastered it in less than 10 minutes. Junyu placed the astral chessboard between the two of them before waving her robes. White and black chess pieces fell onto the chessboard, taking place on each side to form a Zugzwang. This is the first Ling Long Zugzwang. If you're black, how do you get out of this? Initially, Junyu wanted to spar with Su Zimo for a few rounds. However, she lost interest when she saw that he did not know much about chess and was just inducted into it today. After she explained the rules of the game to Su Zimo, she set out the Ling Long Zugzwang for Su Zimo to read and figure out. Regardless of whether Su Zimo could resolve it, she had to complete Fairy Ling Long's request. Su Zimo looked at the chessboard before him and fell into deep thought. Rather than calling it a Zugzwang, it was more like checkmate. The black chess pieces he was controlling were restricted everywhere on the chessboard and were surrounded by white chess pieces. There were obstacles stacked upon one another continuously. This was a dead end without any chance of survival. Su Zimo pinched a black chess piece with his fingertips and stared at the astral chessboard for a long time without placing it down. That was because no matter how he thought about it, he could not find a solution. He had nowhere out no matter where he placed the black piece. The Tao of chess was unpredictable and every single move would lead to countless changes. That was an extremely high requirement for one's mental strength. An hour passed and he sat there motionlessly. The more he calculated, the more chaotic his mind became. His chest felt vexed and he had a splitting headache. Su Zimo closed his eyes hurriedly and composed himself, panting slightly. Junyu was not surprised at all and merely smiled faintly. The Tao of chess was easy to learn but difficult to master. In a game of chess, there were many mysterious dharmic das. A single essence can create duality. Duality creates 4 phenomenons which then splits into 8 trigrams. Everything within heaven and earth that's encompassed by the heavenly cycle can all be reflected in this chessboard that was 2 feet square. The chessboard was heaven and earth, the starry skies and the universe. It was all-encompassing and could accommodate anything. Su Zimo had just learned how to play chess. How could he know how to resolve such an exquisite Ling Long Zugzwang? The 9 Ling Long Zugzwangs were one more complicated and mysterious than the other towards the end. She had cultivated the Tao of chess for many years but had only lost to Fairy Ling Long. Even with her comprehension of chess, it took her an entire day to resolve the first Ling Long Zugzwang. Right then, Su Zimo's breathing had already stabilized. However, he did not open his eyes. Holding the black chess piece between 2 fingers, he placed it on a spot on the astral chessboard. Thereafter, Su Zimo opened his eyes and looked at the Ling Long Zugzwang before him. He heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. On the other end, Junyu could not help but exclaim softly in surprise when she saw Su Zimo's move. That was because this move was the key to resolving the first Ling Long Zugzwang. Although that move seemed like it killed a portion of his black chess pieces, it actually opened up the board by capturing the opponent's pieces as well. It was a mysterious move that allowed him to seek life within death itself. How is that possible? Frowning slightly, Junyu instinctively thought that Su Zimo had merely done it by accident. She did not say much and continued playing with the white chess piece in her hands. After Su Zimo's seemingly suicidal move with his black chess piece, the situation changed drastically. The space on his board was vast and he could move freely without any restraints, killing his way out. Given Su Zimo's talent, it did not take long for him to break out of the encirclement after playing the critical move. He formed a standoff with the white chess pieces and dispelled the Ling Long Zugzwang perfectly. Junyu knew that it was meaningless to continue with the game and retracted the black and white chess pieces. She looked at Su Zimo in surprise. Fellow Taoist Su, you have a strong talent and comprehension in chess that's truly rare indeed. Although she said that, she still had immense doubts towards Su Zimo. She still felt that Su Zimo's move earlier on was merely a lucky hit. Furthermore, it took her an entire day to resolve this situation. As a beginner, Su Zimo only took slightly more than an hour. How was that possible? In reality, under normal circumstances, even if Su Zimo racked his brains and gave it his all, he would not be able to dispel the Ling Long Zugzwang. However, just as he closed his eyes and gradually composed himself, a thought flashed through his mind. A black-robed woman who wielded a horsetail whip and utilized a strange footwork appeared. The black-robed woman was the phantom that the martial Tao Prime Bodhi saw during the 10th tribulation. At that moment, a strange feeling rose in Su Zimo's heart. As though she was on the astral chessboard, the black-robed woman transformed into a black chess piece in his hands and was in a dead end, facing attacks from all directions. However, the black-robed woman was not flustered at all and took a shocking step forward, breaking out of the situation instantly. Pursuing that feeling, Su Zimo placed the black chess piece. The spot where he placed the chess piece was where the black-robed woman took a step forward. Thereafter, Su Zimo opened his eyes and looked over. By then, the situation of the Ling Long Zugzwang had already changed. A path of survival had opened up for the black chess pieces. Su Zimo was a little excited. He recalled the Ling Long Zugzwang earlier on and compared it to the footwork displayed by the black-robed woman. Gradually, a realization flashed through his mind as though he had understood something. The footwork displayed by the black-robed woman was actually the 9 palace subtle steps. However, Su Zimo had only seen the form and process of the black-robed woman's footwork. It was almost impossible for him to truly comprehend that footwork. But now, Fairy Ling Long had infused the Dermic Tao of the 9 palace subtle steps into the Ling Long Zugzwang. On the surface, it looked like she was making them resolve the Zugzwang. However, in reality, she was making use of it to impart the Dermic Tao. Here, they're referring to the game of Go. It's just easier to use chess because Go Immortal or whatnot just sounds weird. Chapter 2568. 2568 6 in a row. 2568 6 in a row. Unconvinced, Junyu waved her robes and scattered another 100-odd pieces on the astral chessboard, setting the second Ling Long Zugzwang. All these years, she had been focused on resolving the Ling Long Zugzwangs. Therefore, she had long memorized all 9 Ling Long Zugzwangs. Su Zimo had just resolved 1 Ling Long Zugzwang and was in high spirits. When he saw Junyu set up the second set, he did not hesitate and observed the chessboard immediately. For the second Ling Long Zugzwang, although the situation of the black chess pieces was completely different from the previous game, it was still a hopeless situation. First, Su Zimo tried to resolve it himself. 2 hours later, although he had some clues, he was still unsure and did not make a move for a long time. He closed his eyes once more and imagined himself as a black piece in the Ling Long Zugzwang. How was he going to break free from such a group attack? The black-robed woman's figure appeared in his mind once more. Su Zimo looked at the black-robed woman's footsteps and verified it against the Ling Long Zugzwang continuously. A moment later, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he finally placed his piece. Piak! The black chess piece landed steadily on a spot on the astral chessboard. Junyu raised her brow slightly. That move was the key to resolving the second Ling Long Zugzwang. Without batting an eyelid, Junyu placed a white chess piece and played against Su Zimo. The second Ling Long Zugzwang was much more complicated than the first. Although he had taken the first move, he was not out of the dead end yet. During this period of time, there were still many traps and countless tribulations awaiting Su Zimo. Before long, Su Zimo made his second move. This time round, Junyu's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Su Zimo deeply. If Su Zimo's first time was an accident and his second time was a coincidence, there was no way this third time could be one of those as well. Fellow Taoist Su, you were just pretending earlier on, right? Junyu asked with a fake smile. At that moment, Su Zimo's mind was completely immersed in the Ling Long Zugzwang. He verified it against the black-robed woman's footwork and comprehended the dermic Tao of the Zugzwang, ignoring Jun Yu's words. The two of them continued to play for dozens of rounds with Jun Yu taking the white side, and she gradually gained the upper hand. However, Jun Yu knew in her heart that in reality, Su Zimo had already resolved the second Ling Long Zugzwang with two amazing moves he made in succession. Back then, it took her an entire 7 days to resolve the second Ling Long Zugzwang. Without another word, Jun Yu scattered the black and white chess pieces once more and set up the third Ling Long Zugzwang. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo immersed himself in it once more. Yun Zhu and Mo Qing stood guard outside. In the blink of an eye, an entire day and night had passed. Yun Zhu squatted on the stone step and held an ancient book in both hands, as though she was focused on reading. However, in reality, the ancient book she opened had been on the same page for a few hours. Yun Zhu carried many books in her storage bag. Initially, she intended to read casually here. After all, 3 days was fleeting. However, it did not take long for her to give up on reading. It was not because the book was bad, but because her mind was not calm. Although her gaze was fixed on the words in the ancient book, her mind was long already on the room and her imagination was running wild. Realizing her state, Yun Zhu sighed gently and put away the ancient book in her hands, looking not far away. On the other side, a woman stood quietly. She was gentle and elegant, holding a brush and drawing the flowers, trees, rocks and water in the courtyard on a piece of paper. The woman fused with the mountains and rivers in the courtyard. Her existence was like the most beautiful painting in the world. Yun Zhu smiled gently. For this innocent sister Mo Qing, it would not be a problem for her to draw here for another 3 or 30 years, let alone 3 days and nights. Yun Zhu stood up and came to Mo Qing's side, waving gently. Sister Yun Zhu, what's wrong? Mo Qing turned and asked. Yun Zhu pointed in the direction of Jun Yu's room. The two of them went in for so long and haven't come out for an entire day and night. There's no activity either.
Yes.
Mo Qing nodded. Indeed, it's a little strange. Yun Zhu said mysteriously, do you want to go in and take a look to see what the two of them are doing?
Will that be a little abrupt?
Mo Qing frowned slightly with a hesitant expression.
Nothing much.
Yun Zhu said, we're just here to pay a visit. It's not like we're going to barge in directly.
All right.
Mo Qing nodded in agreement. Yun Zhu and Mo Qing arrived at Jun Yu's room. Yun Zhu went forward and said loudly, I'm Yun Zhu. Fellow Taoist Jun Yu. I'm here with Mo Qing to pay you a visit. Please open the door. After a while, there was no response from the room. Yun Zhu said in a low voice, there's a seal in this room that blocks spirit consciousness and sound. I'll head up and try knocking. As she said that, Yun Zhu walked forward and knocked on the door gently. After knocking a few times, a gap appeared in the door. The door was unlocked. Yun Zhu pushed the door open softly and saw Su Zimo and Jun Yu kneeling opposite one another on cushions in the room with a game of chess in between them. The two of them were playing chess intensely. Yun Zhu's mouth was slightly agape and she was dumbfounded. She had thought of countless images, but this scene before her was the only one she did not expect. Mo Qing was surprised as well when she saw that. Come in, both of you. Close the door. Jun Yu's voice sounded. Yun Zhu and Mo Qing entered the room and turned to close the door. Su Zimo seemed to be immersed in the chess game and did not even notice Yun Zhu and Mo Qing's arrival. The two of you played chess for an entire day and night? Yun Zhu asked in disbelief.
Yes.
Jun Yu nodded and looked at Su Zimo with a conflicted expression. In just a day and night, this beginner in chess had resolved 6 Ling Long Zugzwangs in succession. This was completely beyond her imagination. Back then, she took a day to resolve the first Ling Long Zugzwang. It took her 7 days to resolve the second. The third took her an entire month. By the time she resolved the 6th Zugzwang, it was a full 100 years. In that 100 years, she did not cultivate at all and spent all her time and energy on resolving the Ling Long Zugzwangs. That torment was still fresh in her memories. She had spent more than 100 years to resolve the first 6 Ling Long Zugzwangs. However, this disciple of the academy before her only took a day and night. Right now, Su Zimo was already attempting to resolve the 7th Ling Long Zugzwang. Back then, it took her even more time to resolve the 7th Ling Long Zugzwang, almost 500 years. Junyu did not dare to guess how much time Su Zimo would take to resolve the 7th Ling Long Zugzwang. However, at that moment, she finally understood why Fairy Ling Long wanted the two of them to communicate. This beginner in chess was indeed qualified to interact with her. In reality, the reason why Fairy Ling Long could make that judgment was because Lin Luo had told her that Su Zimo seemed to have released the 9 palace subtle steps by accident. Fairy Ling Long was extremely surprised by that. She guessed that Su Zimo might have come into contact with the 9 palace subtle steps, but he had not truly mastered it. That was the reason why Fairy Ling Long hid the Dermic Tao of the 9 palace subtle steps in the 9 Ling Long Zugzwangs. She wanted to make use of them to impart the Dermic Tao through chess in return for Desolate Marshal saving Lin Lei and his sister. Chapter 2569. 2569 Enlightenment of Bodhi. 2569 Enlightenment of Bodhi. As expected of the chess immortal. Yunzhu chuckled. Junyu was obsessed with chess and actually dragged Su Zimo to play chess in the room for an entire day and night. Ordinary people would not be able to do something like that. Mo Qing looked at the chessboard on the astral chessboard and asked curiously, "Junior brother Su is also proficient in chess such that he's able to play against you, fellow Taoist?" Junyu had a conflicted expression. Fellow Taoist Su's talent in chess is truly, yes, it's indescribable. In terms of chess strength alone, Su Zimo was far inferior to her in terms of the layout of chess, formations, strategies, plans and other technicalities. After all, Su Zimo had just learned the rules of chess and could only be considered as a beginner. However, in the game of chess, the talent, comprehension, psychology, play, spirit and determination displayed by Su Zimo were comparable to hers. In fact, in some aspects, he might even be above her. Furthermore, Su Zimo was often able to come up with earth-shaking moves such as fighting to survive in the face of death, breaking through absolute stalemates. Yunzhu was surprised as well. She had dabbled in chess as well and was rather skilled. However, she was defeated in multiple games against Junyu back then. To think that Su Zimo would receive such a high evaluation from Junyu in terms of chess. Right now the chessboard looks a little. Yunzhu merely swept her gaze across the astral chessboard. When she caught sight of the chessboard, she frowned and wanted to speak but stopped. Given her skills in chess, there was no way she could survive if she was on the side of black. Or rather, this chess game was a dead end. Junyu did not hide things from Yunzhu and Mo Qing either. "I've prepared 9 Zugzwangs. Fellow Taoist Su has already cleared 6 in succession. Right now, the two of you are looking at the 7th. The Ling Long Zugzwangs were incomparably profound and unpredictable. Even if Junyu and Mo Qing watched from the side, they could not make out anything. Mo Qing was not interested in chess. She merely found a cushion not far away from Su Zimo and assumed a lotus position. Yunzhu stood at the side and glared at the Zugzwang, wanting to find a way to resolve it. However, even after half a day, Su Zimo did not manage to make a move and Yunzhu had no clue either. Not only that, she stared at the Ling Long Zugzwang for a long time and expended a lot of mental energy. It was even more exhausting than fighting for a long time. Yunzhu shook her head gently and closed her eyes, gradually calming down. "Fellow Taoist, how long did it take you to resolve this Zugzwang?" After resting for a while, Yunzhu opened her eyes and asked Junyu. Since Junyu laid out this Zugzwang, she definitely had a way of resolving it. Nearly 500 years. Junyu did not hide anything and gave a figure. Yunzhu was secretly speechless. Even with Junyu's skills and understanding of chess, it took her 500 years to resolve this Zugzwang. She no longer intended to continue trying. Given her chess skills, she might not be able to resolve this Zugzwang even after 5,000 or 50,000 years. Yunzhu's heart skipped a beat as she suddenly asked, "Fellow Taoist, how long did you take to clear the 6th Zugzwang?" After a moment of silence, Junyu replied, "More than 100 years." Yunzhu smirked and a smile flashed through her eyes. She did not continue asking. Junyu had just mentioned that Su Zimo had cleared 6 Zugzwangs in a day and night. This meant that Su Zimo took less than a day and night to clear the 6th Zugzwang. At the very least, Junyu had already lost to Su Zimo in this aspect. Yunju was extremely interested when she discovered this. However, she did not highlight it as a form of respect for Junyu. The 7th Linglong Zugzwang gave Yunju a headache. She did not continue to try and resolve it. Instead, she gave up and casually found a cushion to sit on. Yunju had read a lot of books and had a broad perspective and a carefree nature. She understood that there were many things in this world that could not be accomplished even if she exhausted her entire life's efforts. Since that was the case, why force and make things difficult for herself? Giving up at the right time was also a form of wisdom. There were things that others might be able to do, but so what? In this world, humans were different to begin with. Indeed, Junyu was superior to her in terms of chess.
However, her understanding of the history of the upper world and the past of many experts was far inferior to the chess immortal.
Su Zimo closed his eyes and recalled the scene of the black-robed woman releasing the 9 palaces' subtle steps repeatedly. He compared it with the 7th Linglong Zugzwang before him.
The reason why he was able to resolve the first 6 Linglong Zugzwangs in a single day and night was because of this technique.
However, towards the end, the Linglong Zugzwangs became more complicated and were filled with countless possibilities. The number of steps that had to be calculated and the control of the situation required had far surpassed Su Zimo's imagination. He spent half a day deducing. Not only did he fail to resolve the Zugzwang, his mind was in extreme chaos. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo suddenly took out a seed from his storage bag and held it in his palm. The moment he held the seed, his mind regained clarity and the complicated clues gradually sorted out. That seed was the Bodhi seed he snatched from the Jade Firmament Immortal domain. The Bodhi seed was extremely beneficial to his cultivation. The improvement to cultivation speed itself was secondary. Most importantly, holding the Bodhi seed could greatly increase a cultivator's comprehension ability and maintain their clarity of mind and sharpness. The Bodhi seed originated from one of the 3 sacred trees of the Buddhist monasteries, the Bodhi tree. Legend has it that at the start of the upper world, Buddha meditated for 7 days and nights under the Bodhi tree and defeated the temptation of countless evil demons. When daybreak arrived, he gained great comprehension and became the Buddha. The 3 sacred trees of the Buddhist monasteries had their own origins and were all related to Buddha. Legend has it that Buddha was born beneath the Ashoka tree and attained the Tao beneath the Bodhi tree, undergoing nirvana beneath the Sal tree. Because of that, the 3 trees obtained the Tao of Buddha and eventually became the 3 sacred trees that protected the pure land of bliss. Su Zimo held the Bodhi seed and recalled the process of the black-robed woman releasing the 9 palace subtle steps once more. He did not let go of every single detail and verified them against the Zugzwang. Unknowingly, the sun set and night descended. Su Zimo held the Bodhi seed in one hand and the black chess piece in the other. He had a focused expression and maintained his posture motionlessly. Finally, at daybreak with a bang, Su Zimo took over the black side and made his move on the chessboard. He's finally made his move. Yunju was invigorated and looked over hurriedly. Junyu's eyes lit up at the sight of that move. That move was the key to resolving the 7th Linglong Zugzwang. However, that move by itself was far from enough to resolve the Linglong Zugzwang completely. After that, there were at least 6 more moves Su Zimo had to make, without any mistakes no less, before he could resolve the Zugzwang. Junyu remained silent and placed a white chess piece. Su Zimo's second move was extremely fast and he did not think at all, as though everything was already planned. Junyu was expressionless. Su Zimo's second move was not wrong either. She continued playing. Su Zimo replied swiftly and placed his piece for the 3rd time. The 2 of them continued playing and within a few breaths, each of them placed 7 pieces in succession. Yunju watched from the side in a daze and could not even keep up with their thoughts. However, after the 2 of them placed their pieces respectively, she looked at the chessboard and realized that the black chess pieces had already broken free from the encirclement of the white chess pieces. From then on, the outlook was promising. Chapter 2570. 2570 Doubt. 2570 Doubt. Putting away the chess pieces on the chessboard, Junyu looked at Su Zimo, who was opposite her. She put away her initial contempt and said in a deep voice, "There are 2 more Zugzwangs left. I've comprehended the 8th Zugzwang for more than 500 years, but I still have no clue. Fellow Taoist Su, please guide me without holding back."
You flatter me.
Su Zimo waved it off hurriedly. He knew his own limits.
If he had not seen the black-robed woman's footwork and did not have the help of the Bodhi seed, he would not have been able to resolve the 7 Ling long Zugzwangs. In the past 2 days and nights, Su Zimo had benefited immensely and had already comprehended the essence of the 9 palace subtle steps.
Waving her robes, Junyu scattered more than 200 pieces on the astral chessboard. This game was almost over. However, the situation on the chessboard was even more complicated and profound, far surpassing the 7th Ling long Zugzwang. Su Zimo held the Bodhi seed in his hands and recalled the black-robed woman's footsteps. He verified them against the chessboard but could not find a way to resolve it. On the 3rd day, even when night fell, he had no clue. This Zugzwang is way too complicated and has already surpassed my understanding. Su Zimo frowned slightly and shook his head. Junyu sighed gently as well. I spent more than 500 years deducing this Zugzwang, but I couldn't continue after taking a few steps. As she said that, Junyu laid out the situation of her chess pieces and suggested some solutions to discuss with Su Zimo. However, after 2 hours, the 2 of them still gained nothing from the 8th Ling long Zugzwang. "Let me think about it again," Su Zimo said and closed his eyes.
A moment later, he opened his eyes once more and his pupils that were initially clear transformed into 2 strange purple flames.
Spirit consonance art, the ability to convey what he saw. Although the martial Tao prime body was an Avicii, he made use of the power of the spirit consonance art and looked through the eyes of the green lotus true body to see the 8th Ling long Zugzwang. The martial Tao prime body was in seclusion, and Su Zimo initially had no intention of alarming him. However, on second thought, Su Zimo felt that the Ling long Zugzwangs were extremely mysterious and might be able to give the martial Tao prime body some inspiration and help him perfect the martial Tao. The changes in Su Zimo's body were not obvious. If one did not pay attention, almost no one would notice the abnormality in his eyes. Junyu's senses were sharp. As though she sensed something, she raised her head and glanced at Su Zimo, frowning slightly. Su Zimo was still a grade 8 heaven immortal. Apart from the strange look in his eyes, there did not seem to be any changes to his body. However, there was an indescribable feeling in Junyu's heart. Su Zimo seemed to have changed. For some unknown reason, Junyu felt an unprecedented pressure as she knelt in front of Su Zimo. The pressure even made her uneasy. How could this be? Junyu shook her head gently in confusion. Under normal circumstances, she would not feel this way even against an immortal king. At the side, Yunju noticed the change in Su Zimo's eyes as well. She knew of the existence of the martial Tao prime body. She did not know what was happening to Su Zimo's body at the moment. However, she guessed that the person before her had probably changed to desolate marshal of the fiend domain. Mo Qing was drawing quietly at the side and did not notice the commotion. Naturally, she did not notice the change in Su Zimo. Su Zimo's eyes burned with 2 purple flames as he fused the dermic Tao and divine charm of the astral chessboard into the martial Tao furnace to refine it. In order to perfect the martial Tao, the prime body had browsed through countless cultivation techniques and secret skills and summarized countless dermic arts and true meanings. The judgment and experience of the martial Tao prime body far surpassed the green lotus true body who was still at the heaven essence realm. In the eyes of the martial Tao prime body, the astral chessboard was another world. There were 19 horizontal and vertical lines. In reality, the board was formed by the endless extension of 9 square grids. At that moment, under the gaze of the martial Tao prime body, the black-robed woman seemed to have turned into a chess piece and walked around the Ling long Zugzwang. Every single step of the black-robed woman was unexpected. However, upon closer inspection, one could tell that every single step of the black-robed woman had a deeper meaning. Towards the end, the black-robed woman actually took a step in the void beside the chessboard. Although that step seemed like it landed nowhere, Su Zimo shuddered.
I see.
Su Zimo murmured softly. Fellow Taoist Su, have you found a way to resolve it? Junyu asked with a frown, unable to believe it. Su Zimo did not reply and merely placed a black chess piece. Junyu pondered for a moment before she took on the side of the white chess pieces to go against him on the astral chessboard. Towards the end, Junyu's speed slowed down. Often, she would have to think for a long time for every step she took. However, Su Zimo's moves became faster and faster. Finally, at daybreak, the 8th Ling Long Zugzwang was over and Su Zimo had already resolved it perfectly. Fellow Taoist, please guide me. Junyu did not dare to be negligent. She stood up first and cupped her fists before asking sincerely. This Zugzwang was indeed complicated and its intent is even more transcendent. Su Zimo's tone was calm. The 8th Zugzwang describes the power of space. The 9 palace subtle steps does not only exist in a single level. It can traverse in all directions. With that, we can think of it as the creation of an alternate path to carve a way of survival. At that moment, although the person sitting opposite Junyu was Su Zimo, in reality, the martial Tao prime body had yet to leave. Therefore, there was a hint of coldness in his tone. A look of realization flashed through Junyu's eyes as she lamented internally. So, the way to break out of this situation lies in the dimension of space. It was no wonder why I had no clue at all. In reality, even if they comprehended the 9 palace subtle steps of this level, Junyu and Su Zimo would not be able to release it given their cultivation realms. The 9 palace subtle steps of this level required a cultivator to reach the Immortal King realm and open up a grotto heaven.
Where's the 9th?
Su Zimo asked. Without hesitation, Junyu set up the 9th Zugzwang. Su Zimo's eyes burned with purple flames as he deduced the 9th Ling Long Zugzwang together with the martial Tao prime body. Right then, when Mo Qing heard the conversation at the side, she could sense something odd about Su Zimo's tone and turned back instinctively. She happened to see the 2 purple flames in Su Zimo's eyes.
Mo
Qing opened her mouth slightly and froze on the spot. For some unknown reason, when she saw Su Zimo's eyes burning with flames, the image of the man in purple robes and silver mask suddenly flashed through her mind. Back in Avicii, the purple flames appeared in Desolate Marshall's eyes as well. Their eyes were way too similar. Mo Qing was well versed in the Tao of painting, and was meticulous in her observation of things. Her judgment was even more brilliant than Yunju and Junyu. She had even drawn a portrait of Desolate Marshall personally. Because Desolate Marshall wore a silver mask, Mo Qing spent the most effort on Desolate Marshall's eyes in that portrait. It could be said that Desolate Marshall's eyes were already imprinted in her mind. Therefore, when she saw Su Zimo's eyes, Mo Qing immediately thought of Desolate Marshall of the Fiend Domain. Both of them must have mastered the same visual technique secret skill, right? Mo Qing was puzzled and thought to herself. Right then, hurried footsteps sounded from outside, as though someone was about to barge in. Chapter 2571. 2571 You're an animal. 2571 You're an animal. Yun Ting's face was livid as he arrived at Junyu's room in a huff. Just as he was about to barge in, he seemed to have thought of something and hesitated. For the past 3 days, there were all sorts of rumors about Su Zimo and the 4 great fairies. Furthermore, they got more exaggerated and ridiculous. Initially, Yun Ting scoffed at such rumors and thought nothing of them. However, for the past 3 days, many cultivators described it with such vividness that even he was starting to believe them. After 3 days had passed and Junyu, Yunju, Mo Qing and Su Zimo were nowhere to be seen, Yun Ting could not hold it in any longer as he rushed here, prepared to ask the truth face to face. Her sister was a princess of an immortal kingdom after all. How could she do such a ridiculous thing? My sister must have fallen into Su Zimo's trap. Yun Ting grit his teeth in hatred and spat, "Stupid gigolo of the academy." However, even if his sister had lost her mind, what was up with the chess and painting immortals? Those 3 fairies were all messing around with Su Zimo. They spent an entire 3 days and nights in the room. Yun Ting was initially furious. However, he hesitated when he rushed to the door of the room. Naturally, if he caught sight of an indescribable scene upon rushing in, he would not let Su Zimo off. But, what about his sister? After all, something like this could not be exposed. Yun Ting paced left and right at the entrance of the room. He could not make up his mind the entire time.
However, no matter how he thought about it, the battle for the heaven ranking was about to begin and he had to inform everyone in the room regardless.
At that thought, Yun Ting knocked gently on the door. The door was not locked and he only knocked a few times before a crack appeared. Yun Ting took a deep breath and pushed the door open. There were 4 people in the room, 3 women and a man. They were Book Immortal Yun Zhu, Painting Immortal Mo Qing, Chess Immortal Jun Yu and Su Zimo. The 4 of them gathered together. Yun Zhu, Mo Qing and Su Zimo stared at a chess game while Mo Qing looked at Su Zimo in a daze. This scene had completely exceeded Yun Ting's expectations. He was dumbfounded and looked at everything in disbelief. Stunned on the spot, his mind was a little blurry and he could not react for a moment. When they sensed the activity at the entrance, Su Zimo and the 3 fairies snapped out of their stupor. The purple flames in Su Zimo's eyes faded gradually and eventually vanished. Even with the capabilities of the martial Dao prime body, he could not resolve the 9th Ling Long Zugzwang within a short period of time. He could only memorize the situation of the Zugzwang and deduce it slowly after he returned. When Mo Qing saw that Su Zimo's eyes had returned to normal, she retracted her gaze and lowered her head slightly in deep thought. Jun Yu put away the astral chessboard as well as the black and white chess pieces. Yun Zhu turned to look at Yun Ting at the entrance and asked, "Little brother, what are you doing here?" Yun Ting was speechless and did not know what to say. Jun Yu said indifferently, 3 days have passed. The battle for the heaven ranking will officially begin today. He must be here to inform us of that.
Why yes.
Yun Ting nodded instinctively.
Thereafter, he was still worried and could not help but ask, "Sister, what were the 4 of you doing here?" "The 2 of them were playing chess while I was observing from the side with Sister Mo Qing."
Yun Zhu replied casually. Yun Ting took a few deep breaths and tried his best to compose himself. He asked with difficulty, "The 4 of you spent 3 days and nights surrounding a chessboard in this room?" Yun Zhu nodded.
More or less.
Yun Ting rolled his eyes. When Yun Zhu saw Yun Ting's strange expression, she frowned slightly and asked, "What else do you think we were doing?"
It's not just me.
Yun Ting pointed outside the door and said bitterly, "You guys hid here in seclusion. Do you have any idea how many rumors are spreading outside?" Rumors stop at wise men. Jun Yu's expression was calm and nonchalant. The innocent are self-righteous. Mo Qing's tone was indifferent. Because of Meng Yao's slander at the Immortal sect selection, there had been many rumors about her over the years and she could not be bothered.
Is that so?
Yun Zhu smiled gently. "I'm curious what rumors they are spreading." Yun Zhu was even more relaxed. Yun Ting had a helpless expression. His gaze shifted to Su Zimo, who was silent at the side. His hunger that had just subsided rose again as he shouted, "Su Zimo!" Su Zimo was recalling the previous 8 Ling Long Zugzwangs when he heard Yun Ting shout and jolted awake. He looked at the enraged Yun Ting and was puzzled, not knowing why the young prince was angry. "Fellow Taoist Yun Ting, what can I do for you?" Su Zimo asked.
You.
Yun Ting hesitated. He wanted to reprimand Su Zimo but suddenly realized that he could not say anything. Su Zimo merely watched over the 3 great fairies and played chess for 3 days and nights. What was wrong with that? Yun Ting thought for a long time but could not come up with anything. He could only glare at Su Zimo angrily and scold, "You're an animal." With that said, Yun Ting turned to leave. Su Zimo was utterly confused and did not know why he was scolded by Yun Ting. Yun Zhu said, "Who knows what's wrong with him again? Zimo, don't bother. Let's go, the battle for the heaven ranking is about to begin." Jun Yu said. The 3 fairies stood up and headed to the Divine Firmament Hall with Su Zimo. Divine Firmament Hall. In less than 3 days, the ruins caused by the battle between the perfected immortals had already returned to normal. Millions of cultivators were gathered here in a dense crowd. Almost all the cultivators of the 4 immortal kingdoms and 3 immortal sects were present as well. Only a few people had yet to arrive at the hall. The Chess Immortal, Book Immortal and Painting Immortal have yet to arrive.
You don't know yet.
Another cultivator said, 3 days ago, after the perfected immortal battle ended, the 3 fairies and Su Zimo gathered together.
Ha! For real now? It's absolutely true.
Someone witnessed it personally. The person said with a delighted expression. Furthermore, the 3 fairies stayed in the same room as Su Zimo for an entire 3 days and nights without leaving.
Heavens!
Could the 4 of them have been? Many cultivators' eyes lit up. Is there even a need to think? If it was you and I guarding the 3 fairies for 3 days and nights, would we still be able to sit there idly?
Another person said.
To think that although the 3 fairies look unattainable, they would end up getting together with a heaven immortal of the academy. What's so good about Su Zimo? He's just someone who ascended from the lower worlds and can't compare to others in terms of cultivation realm as well. The 3 fairies are truly blind.
Hee hee.
A cultivator with a sleazy expression gave a strange laugh. Su Zimo must be outstanding in some way. 3 days and nights. TSK. Flying Immortal Sect and Zither Immortal Meng Yao were secretly delighted when they heard the discussions in the crowd. Of the 4 great fairies, 3 of them were now rumored to be involved with someone and were no longer unattainable. Her status would definitely rise once more and surpass the other 3 fairies. In that case, Zither Immortal Meng Yao is probably the only one who can truly be described as pure and divinely among the 4 great fairies.
A cultivator sighed.
Of course not. Another person whispered, let me tell you, Zither Immortal Meng Yao is also involved with Su Zimo like the 3 fairies.
Ha! For real? Of course.
Otherwise, why would Fairy Meng Yao suddenly attack Su Zimo this time round and cause the 3 fairies to step in?
That's right.
Since she couldn't get her hands on Su Zimo, she decided to destroy him instead. The Zither Immortal's love turned into hatred in a twist of fate. At that point, Meng Yao was so angry that she trembled with a livid expression. Chapter 2572. 2572 Ranking Battle begins. 2572 Ranking Battle begins. What a load of nonsense. Enraged, Meng Yao spun around and soared into the air. She looked in the direction of the voices and twiddled her fingers in the void a few times. The sound of the zither sounded endlessly and suppressed the discussions of many cultivators before long. Who was spouting nonsense earlier on? Meng Yao looked at the crowd with an icy expression and questioned loudly. Her tone was cold and filled with killing intent. There were too many cultivators in the Divine Firmament Hall, and there were tens of millions of them. At a glance, it was a black patch. Meng Yao could only determine the approximate location of the discussions earlier on, but she did not know who were the ones gossiping. When they saw Meng Yao's murderous aura, which of the few people who spoke earlier on dared to stand out and die? Everyone kept mum out of fear and did not dare to say anything. Good. Meng Yao was so angry that she laughed instead. It's fine if you don't come out. At most, I'll just kill a few more. She would rather kill the wrong people than let them off. Buzz! Meng Yao's fingertip moved and the essence chi in the void condensed into a zither string beneath her finger, causing the sound of the zither to echo once more. However, this time round, the sound of the zither contained an extremely murderous intent. The few cultivators on the other side could not defend against it, and their eyes bulged with blood in shock. Immediately after, the bodies of the few cultivators exploded into blood mists and their essence spirits were destroyed, dying on the spot. Some cultivators with higher cultivation realms and stronger physiques in the surroundings were severely injured as well. Buzz! A second zither sound sounded. Some cultivators were already severely injured after withstanding the first sound of the zither. Before they could catch their breaths, the second sound of the zither descended. Instantly, more than 10 cultivators died. Many cultivators were shocked. Nobody expected Zither Immortal Meng Yao to start a massacre and even kill the innocent in public just because someone discussed her in private. It was clear that some of the cultivators who had just died had suffered an undeserved calamity. Many cultivators were enraged. However, they did not dare to say anything because of the Zither Immortal's reputation and combat strength, afraid that they would get themselves killed. What a temper! When Yunting arrived at the Divine Firmament Hall and saw that, he could not help but sneer. The dignified Zither Immortal is actually someone who bullies the weak. Meng Yao glared at Yun Ting and said coldly, "This is none of your business. Don't be a busybody." "Why? You even want to attack me?" Yun Ting sneered again fearlessly. Meng Yao's eyes flashed coldly. Yun Ting had a noble status and she had her reservations. Although she could not kill him in front of everyone, she could teach Yun Ting a lesson. "Meng Yao, if you want to attack, I'll join you." Right then, another voice sounded.
Not far away, the three fairies arrived side by side and arrived at the Divine Firmament Hall in the blink of an eye.
The person who spoke was Book Immortal Yun Zhu.
When the three fairies approached, everyone realized that there was someone behind them. It was Su Zimo of the Academy.
When Meng Yao saw the four of them appear at the same time, she suddenly smiled. "I'm afraid the three of you don't know the various rumors about you guys over the past few days, right?"
They were truly entertaining.
Meng Yao praised and clapped with a smile. Jun Yu's expression was calm. "Rumors stop at wise men.
The innocent have nothing to fear."
Mo Qing's tone was indifferent. The two of them repeated their statements with the same nonchalant expression. The fact that the two fairies were so calm caused many cultivators to start doubting the rumors about the three fairies. In fact, the two fairies could not even be bothered to argue against the rumors.
However, Meng Yao seemed to have been agitated and was even willing to kill.
The difference in behavior between both parties was obvious. Yun Zhu said with a fake smile, "Since it's a rumor, why bother? Fellow Taoist Meng Yao, are you so nervous because the rumors involving you are true?" "Of course they're fake," Meng Yao said hurriedly. Yun Zhu's question was extremely powerful and struck Meng Yao's weakness instantly. "I've long felt that the matter between the three fairies and Su Zimo was way too ridiculous and impossible." "That's right.
Back when it spread, I didn't believe that the three great fairies would fancy an inner sect disciple of the Academy given their status and nobleness."
Say, given Meng Yao's strong reaction, do you guys think that the portion about her and Su Zimo is true? Meng Yao's younger brother, Prince Yuanzhua, died in Su Zimo's hands after all, and there's a blood feud between the two of them. Meng Yao realized that she won't be able to be with Su Zimo in this lifetime, and that's why hatred turned into love.
"There's a high chance."
The crowd began to whisper again.
Many cultivators looked at Meng Yao with pity in their eyes. Sensing the gazes around her and hearing the discussions in the crowd, Meng Yao was about to explode from anger and wanted nothing more than to kill all of them. Right then, Divine Firmament Palace's immortal King Qingyang appeared once more with a group of Divine Firmament Palace cultivators and descended above the hall.
"Everyone has arrived. Very good." Immortal King Qingyang nodded slightly. "There's no need to explain the rules since everyone knows about it. I'll now announce the official start of the Heaven Ranking Battle." The moment he said that, Immortal King Qingyang waved his robes and heaven and earth essence qi surged. Suddenly, 10 gigantic rocks rose from the empty space in the middle of the Divine Firmament Hall as the battlefield for the Heaven Ranking. At that time, 10 ranking battles could be held at the same time. Boom! On the gigantic rock in the middle, a figure descended from the skies with a loud bang, creating layers of dust. The person stood up slowly and his aura rose continuously. It was Prince Yun Ting.
Yun Ting could not hold it in any longer and looked forward to this moment. "Su Zimo, come on up!"
Yun Ting shouted, "For you and me, the rules of the ranking battle are just for show. Among the heaven immortals of the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, you're the only one worthy of being my opponent." In Yun Ting's heart, there was an additional declaration. "Su Zimo, I'm going to crush you and teach you an unforgettable lesson so that you can keep your distance from my sister in the future." The challenge between the two of them was arranged long ago. Su Zimo did not hesitate and arrived at the gigantic stone battlefield in a flash. In reality, their actions were equivalent to breaking the rules of the Heaven Ranking. However, Immortal King Qingyang did not say anything or have any intention of stopping them. Zhong Feiyu and Qin Gu did not express anything right away either. Both of them had their own plans. They would watch from the sidelines as Su Zimo and Yun Ting fought fiercely. In a fight between two tigers, one would definitely be injured. No matter who was injured, it would be beneficial to them. It would be best if Su Zimo and Yun Ting suffered an internecine outcome. That way, the two of them would have a chance to benefit and fight for rank 1 of the Heaven Ranking. Who do you think will win? Junyu glanced sideways at Yunju beside her and suddenly asked.
I don't know.
Yunju shook her head gently and looked at the two people on the gigantic stone battlefield, sighing gently. It did not matter to her who won between the two of them. She only hoped that the two of them would be safe and not fight to the death. However, she did not say that to Yun Ting or Su Zimo. That was because it was difficult for both parties to control their strength at the peak of a fight of this level. No matter who she instructed to show mercy, it was unfair to the other. Chapter 2573. 2573 Battle of the Paragons. 2573 Battle of the Paragons.
Come on.
Yun Ting hollered and lightning flashed in his eyes. His voice rumbled like the explosion of thunder and was filled with endless might. Not only did Yun Ting possess the Sword Dao, he also had extremely deep attainments in the Thunder Dao. The surrounding heaven and earth essence chi was surging wildly into Yun Ting's body. His aura was rising rapidly. No matter what, Yun Ting was a grade 9 heaven immortal after all and was a realm above Su Zimo. Su Zimo did not dare to underestimate his opponent and did not hold back either. He released his innate divine power, the six-tusked divine strength. 6 sharp white elephant tusks grew rapidly behind him and his body was filled with the power of divine powers. His physique, essence spirit and bloodline powers increased exponentially as well. Although Su Zimo was a grade 8 heaven immortal, he was no weaker than Yun Ting in terms of strength.
Fight!
Both of them attacked at almost the same time. Moon-striking comet. Sun-piercing white rainbow. Relying on his immensely condensed resentment, Yun Ting released 2 supreme divine powers of the Sword Dao in the blink of an eye. A streak of flames and a white streak of light split into different directions and stabbed towards Su Zimo. They were extremely sharp, as though they could penetrate everything in the world. Those 2 divine powers of the Sword Dao were extremely lethal. Yun Ting's comprehension of the Sword Dao augmented the power of the 2 supreme divine powers exponentially when they were released. Thunder Prison. The moment the 2 supreme divine powers were released, Yun Ting's 3rd supreme divine power descended as well. Crack. Unknowingly, dark clouds filled the skies above the gigantic stone battlefield and lightning flashed. A thick thunderbolt descended from the skies and circled around Su Zimo continuously, forming a gigantic thunder prison that wanted to trap him within. Su Zimo's reaction was even faster. As he released the 6-tusked divine strength behind him, he summoned his ethereal wings, Zephyr Thunder Wings and Rock Wings. When the 3 different wings were stacked together, Su Zimo's speed increased exponentially and he transformed into a golden streak of light, disappearing from the spot. With a boom, 9 divine thunderbolts descended but Su Zimo was no longer in the thunder prison. However, the 2 sword divine powers did not disappear because of that. Yun Ting had long locked onto Su Zimo's aura. Although Su Zimo's movement technique was shocking, he could not unleash its greatest effect within the limited radius of the gigantic stone battlefield. The flames and white rainbow in midair tracked Su Zimo and changed directions, chasing after him at an even faster speed. Spirit Turtle Shield. Su Zimo no longer retreated and channeled his essence spirit, releasing another innate divine power. He had to get rid of Yun Ting's 2 sword divine powers. Otherwise, it would be like gangrene that followed him like a shadow and was difficult to remove. It would pose an immense threat to his future actions. Because he had cultivated the secret skill of the Hell Suppression Tripod, Su Zimo had a new understanding of the Spirit Turtle Shield. The defense of that innate divine power had already exceeded its original limits. Su Zimo had cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness before. However, as his cultivation realm increased continuously, and he cultivated a few taboo mystic classics over the years, he had some personal comprehensions and insights towards its Dharmic Tao. He had already begun to gradually surpass the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness. The power of divine powers gathered continuously, forming a gigantic turtle shell that blocked in front of Su Zimo. The back of the turtle shell was filled with mysterious and complicated patterns that shone brightly. Not only that, there was even a water barrier that was extremely heavy wrapped around the turtle shell, as though it was flowing continuously with a faint black light. Shing! Shing! Shing!
Xing.
The flames formed by moon-striking comet were the first to descend and let out a strange sound when they struck the spirit turtle shield. The power of fire and water collided and green smoke billowed.
Clang.
At the same time, the white rainbow descended and pierced the turtle shell through the green smoke.
Creak.
Su Zimo shuddered and heard cracking sounds. His spirit turtle shield that had an even stronger dermic Dao was now destroyed by Yun Ting's two-sword divine powers. Although the spirit turtle shield blocked the two supreme divine powers almost perfectly, Su Zimo could still sense the extreme sharpness behind it. Given Su Zimo's current cultivation and powerful essence spirit, even if 10 or 100 grade 9 heaven immortals released supreme divine powers at the same time, they might not be able to break his spirit turtle shield. But now, Yun Ting's two supreme divine powers had broken through his strongest defensive divine power. Although he had been improving rapidly all these years, Yun Ting did not stop either. Both of them were stronger and more terrifying than they were thousands of years ago in the Emperor's tomb. Great Five Elements Sword. Yun Ting did not stop attacking and released a second wave of attacks before long. Many years ago, there was a powerful sword immortal among the sword Dao cultivators of the heavenly world. He specialized in the Five Elements Sword Dao and eventually entered the Emperor realm. He dominated the Trichiliacosm and was rarely matched. In this generation, Yun Ting was the successor of the Five Elements Sword Dao. That information was recorded in the Heaven Ranking Prediction. Yun Ting alone had obtained more than 10 different Sword Dao inheritances. Even the weakest progenitors of those Sword Dao inheritances in the past were immortal kings. Among them, many were emperor experts of the Sword Dao in the past. Yun Ting conjured a finger sword with both hands and pointed it in Su Zimo's direction.
Buzz.
The sound of swords unsheathing echoed around Su Zimo and the void trembled slightly. Immediately after, endless divine powers gathered around Su Zimo, transforming into 5 swords of different colors. Every single sword represented different dermic Daos and covered metal, wood, water, fire and earth. They circled around Su Zimo rapidly and the sharpness of their tips locked onto him. The power of the 5 elements sealed and strangled him. Yun Ting was the #1 Sword Dao expert in the heavenly world for many years. The Sword Dao represented the limits of killing. The Spirit Turtle Shield earlier on was destroyed by Yun Ting's 2 supreme divine powers. There was no way Su Zimo could deal with Yun Ting's relentless attacks just by defending passively. Since that was the case, he would counterattack with offense. At that thought, Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and conjured hand seals repeatedly, releasing 6 completely different but related divine powers. Heavenly Dao, Human Dao, Azura Dao, Hungry Ghost Dao, Beast Dao and Hell Dao. 6 paths of reincarnation, condense. With a powerful essence spirit that far surpassed a grade 9 heaven immortal, Su Zimo gathered the 6 Daos together and released a gigantic vortex that spun continuously, as though it could devour and refine everything in the world. The 6 paths of reincarnation was originally a peerless divine power. However, for some unknown reason, after many eras, no one could comprehend the true meaning of 6 paths of reincarnation. As time passed by, that peerless divine power gradually turned into a supreme divine power. Even so, the might of the 6 paths of reincarnation was still a top-tier existence among supreme divine powers. The great 5 elements sword spun continuously, wanting to kill Su Zimo. As for the gigantic vortex formed by the 6 paths of reincarnation, it pulled the 5 gigantic swords continuously. 2 completely different divine powers collided continuously and devoured one another. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.